Clicking live with the squeaky flow.
Yeah.
TikTok's up the
Hey.
rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. It's your friendly neighborhood philosopher here. Oh, I suppose I should warn someone. Apostate Aladdin, if you're watching, there may be something in here that could hurt your incredibly delicate, sensitive, fragile feelings. So just keep that in mind. Your heart may get broken during this live stream. So just go away. Go smell the roses, smell the lilies of the field or something like that. Hey, AP.
Yes.
You heard of this Avalanche of Apostasy thing?
Avalanche of Apostasy. I heard that. I heard at some point. Yes.
Yeah. So they've been
I heard
dealing
it's a
with
nice
this.
thing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You basically had the apostasy rate in Islam over a period of about 15 years go from basically 0% to about 24%. And that was several years ago when that statistic came out. So if you're a Dawah guy and you're looking at that trajectory, right? You're looking at the trajectory and you're going, if the trajectory continues, then Islam is in trouble. And totally different mindset from 20 years ago. The mindset 20 years ago was, if we sit back and do nothing. Now, we're going to go and continue doing Dawah. So I'm speaking from the perspective of a Da'i. We're going to continue doing Dawah, but even if we sit back and do nothing, we win, because the birth rates will eventually take over the world just by birth rates. Right? That was the mentality like 20 years ago. Then the apostasy rate started skyrocketing, thanks to a bunch of people like us. So the apostasy rate starts skyrocketing. And now, if you're a Da'i, you're looking at this and you're not going, oh, if we just sit back and do nothing, we're fine. You're looking at this going, if we just sit back and do nothing, we are doomed, because the apostasy rates are skyrocketing. And so the mentality has changed from, we can sit back and do nothing and win, to, if we sit back and do nothing, we will definitely lose. And so they're scrambling to figure out what to do. Got that?
Indeed. I got that entirely. I must say, I appreciate you giving a breakdown of the situation. However, you seem to use a strong voice
I'm
and
sorry.
strong words while you're doing this. We must always take into consideration that somebody who just tunes in and who just starts watching this video might be traumatized by the sentiments portrayed and delivered in this video. So always make sure to say viewer discretion advised. And yeah,
right. I apologize. Sadly, I am mostly incapable of crying, so I will try to get some pepper spray. And whenever AP brings up that I could possibly have offended a particular person who may be tuning in, I will spray myself in the face with pepper spray, thus leaking salty goop out of my eyes, and hopefully his heart will be whole again.
I think he will appreciate your sacrifice. It's very good.
All right. So anyway, you've got the Muslim Da'is scrambling. They're in a panic mode. They could still thump their chest. We're so strong. Behind the scenes, we've seen endless videos of them in absolute panic mode that Islam's not going to recover unless they come up with some brilliant plan, which they haven't. Their current plan is attack in all directions and hope that the retaliation from other groups around the world will solidify the resolve of Muslims and so on. That's not going to work. And once that doesn't work, once that project fails, I don't think they've got a plan B. They have no backup plan here. So these are cool times. These are good times. I wanted to watch. You familiar with We watched something from Chris at Speaker's Corner, didn't we, at some point?
For some reason, I don't seem to remember who exactly that was. But
okay, we'll play it. Then you'll remember it.
I will probably remember him once we remember him.
Yeah, you will. So anyway, guys, you had Saif Talk, our good friend Saif Talk. He was running his mouth about how...
I remember this guy. Of course I do. Okay, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and I got a link to his video in the description box. We're going to go ahead and watch his video. He's responding to our good friend Saif Talk. Saif Talk, of course, makes his video. Christians are leaving Islam. I mean, Christians are leaving Christianity and becoming Muslims because they're reading the Bible and finding out that it's false and then running to the Quran, which he doesn't seem to be aware. It confirms the Bible. But that's his theory of things. And Chris from Speaker's Corner is going to respond to that.
Christians are leaving Islam. That's where we are now. Wow.
Yep. It's pretty weird situation to be in. All right, everyone. Let's go and jump on this.
Yes.
Chris, Speaker's Corner.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this
Hey,
video.
what's up, Chris?
I am going to be doing a review of a Muslim apologist, a Muslim missionary, a da'i, who is giving some terrible reasons as to why he thinks Christianity is wrong and the Bible isn't preserved. And as always, he introduces as many terrible and weak points as he possibly can in his short video.
That does sound like Saif Talk.
Yeah.
And pretty much every other Dawah guy.
Yes.
All right.
And I'll be dismantling them all and also demonstrating why he is projecting and how actually Islam is the religion with the issues he's mentioning. Let's go.
According to the 2021 consensus in England and Wales by the Office of National Statistics,
Why are
for
you
the
laughing?
first time in a census of England
Hey, you have an accent too. Quit making fun of everyone who has an accent.
It's not just the accent. It's the whole.
It's how he's kind of like semi-yelling the entire time he says everything. Let me tell you.
Yes, let me talk about this for.
Let me just yell. Let me just yell at the screen the entire time without raising my voice so much, because this is what my fans listen to. If I talk to them like this, like I'm some sort of drill sergeant, then they will listen to me. Okay.
Wales, less than half of the population, 46.2%, 27.5 million people describe themselves as Christians. A 13.1 percentage point decrease from 59.3%, 33.3 million in 2011. Despite this decrease, Christian remained the most common response to the religion question.
46.2%. So the population percentage of the population that identifies themselves as Christians dropped significantly since, let's see, 59% in 2011. What was the year of this? I don't see it. But anyway, a recent year. So basically over the period of about a decade or so, the percentage of people in the UK who identify as Christian dropped. Now, Saif explains this and he says, it's because they finally read the Bible and concluded that it's false. You're an atheist, you're laughing at that. Like all these guys are running around going, hey, let's finally read the Bible. Ah, we don't believe this stuff. We're actually atheists. More like you had an aggressive push by a group called the New Atheists. You had including some of the most intelligent sounding people on the planet, Richard Dawkins, for the past couple decades, which used sort of the 9/11 attacks as a starting point and said, see, this is what religion does. And then they amped it up in the US saying, hey, if you don't stop Christians right now, they're going to make a Christian theocracy. You have to stop them right now. We have to really push hard. And you did have a bunch of people buy into that complete nonsense.
Yeah, I would say that it's definitely also a thing, a factor of when people are introduced to the social media, the global interactions, the modernity. Times are changing pretty fast, and religious landscapes are changing with that. I would say that there is probably with the introduction of all of this and with the changing of the world, a sudden change in demographics, a sudden change in religious beliefs that is probably momentary and not something that will just continue like this in the long run.
Yeah, so you're pointing out is basically, in the past where you had like Christians over here in the West and Muslims over here and Hindus down here and not a ton of interacting. It's pretty normal for a person who grows up in one of those environments to just hear that their entire lives, and they don't have much of a reason to challenge it. Then in the West, you end up with a bunch of people getting mixed together, and now all of a sudden there are all these different people with all these different views. So that's already like informing you, like you knew it, but now you're actually meeting people and interacting with people who have seriously different views from you. But then, yeah, you're right, AP. And then on social media, all of a sudden you're interacting all day long with people who have very different views. And so, yeah, you are going to get quite a bit of this.
I know I'm right. You don't need to tell me I'm right. Yeah.
But Scythe Talk's conclusion is it's because Christians woke up and decided to read their Bibles and recognize that it's false, and that's why they're all converting to Islam now.
Yes.
And, let's see if that's correct.
At the same time, you can see an increase in other religions, for example, Islam. There were increases in
Stop making fun of it.
number of people who describe themselves as Muslim. 3.9 million, 6.5% in 2021, up from 2.7 million, 4.9% in 2011.
And we all know why that is, because people read the Bible and they say, this makes no sense. Then they read the Quran, then they convert to Muslim. No, that's not what's happening.
Yeah, 3.9 million Muslims in 2021, up from 2.7 in 2011. I guess those are from conversions, right, everyone?
Oh, of course it is. What are you talking about? Isn't it very obvious?
Well, yes, as long as you're speaking in that tone, anything you say must be true.
Hindu 1 million, 1.7% in 2021, up from 818,000.
Isn't that interesting? Everyone's converting to Hinduism too.
Whoa.
Says it right there.
Weird.
200,000 people must have converted to Hinduism, according to Scythe
Strange.
Talk.
1.5% in 2011.
Now, the census data, I think, is somewhat misleading because Muslims like to sort of picture this grand victorious thing where it's like, yes, we're finally winning, guys. We're getting some traction. We've gone from like 1% to like 3 or 4%. Oh, it's amazing. Well, not so quick. According to a report from the Muslim Council of Britain, published in 2015, we can see that 53% of the Muslims who are in the UK are not actually from the UK. They would be counted twice. Any census data that is done in their home countries and the census data that is done in the UK, depending on exactly when they moved from that country to the UK. If more than half of the group that you supposedly think are gonna bring it home for the Muslims are not actually from the country that you're counting them from, it's a bit disingenuous. It would be a bit like counting all the British people in colonized India and saying that this is because all the Indian people have seen the benefits of the British way and have joined the empire.
Good point, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So Britain is bringing in lots of Muslims from different parts of the world, and then Muslims look at the number and say, "Aha! Look at the big number. Look at the increase. You see, everyone's converting to Islam." And Chris here just pointed out this would be like once the British took over India, and you had a ton of British people down there and a ton of British soldiers and so on. If you just added them up, you'd say, wow, the Christian population increased significantly. That must be because Hindus are just converting to Christianity left and right. Well, you need to take into account the people who just like moved there, because those aren't your conversions there. See what he's got.
Not quite. It's mostly due to the fact
that point.
Not actually from the country that you're counting them from. It's a bit disingenuous. It would be a bit like counting all the British people in colonized India and saying that this is because all the Indian people have seen the benefits of the British way and have joined the empire. Not quite. It's mostly due to the fact that we went there and we colonized it. I mean, that's obvious. It's, of course, also worth noting that since roughly 1997...
He's laughing about colonization. He's laughing about colonization.
Imagine Apostate Aladdin coming on here just to see what's going on and having his sensitive heart broken by those words and that laugh. This is not the way. This is not the way.
Bad words.
of immigration this nation has been increasing rapidly into the hundreds of thousands per year.
Ooh, look at that.
Nice.
Skyrocketing.
Always good to see.
A significant amount of those hundreds of thousands per year are people from Muslim nations who hold themselves as Muslims. Now let's look at the actual decrease in Christianity. The decrease in Christianity from the last 2 census reports demonstrates what? Well, where did those people go? Where did those people who stopped being Christian, what religion did they pick up instead? What did they convert to?
What's your prediction, AP?
No religion.
Well, they converted to nothing. They converted to atheism. And it's pretty much almost
He just said atheism is nothing. Everyone, if Apostate Aladdin has not listened to this, then if he's going to listen to it later, make sure he covers his ears so that he doesn't have his feelings hurt by that.
for one.
Yeah.
In other words, every person that left Christianity, about 95, if not above % went to either agnosticism, atheism, a spiritual belief, or nothing.
No. You can't talk about that. That ruins the whole Dawah message. That ruins the whole spirit, the whole moral of the video, of the story here. That you can't just go into the details of where they actually went. You have to first go into the decrease of Christianity and the increase of Islam. That's it. Don't talk about the rest. Don't talk about the rest. We don't need that.
Isn't it?
You're hurting people's feelings.
So now they're using these statistics and completely misrepresenting what's going on.
Yeah.
But they were doing that for years when, after Pew Research came out with a study saying that Islam is the world's fastest growing religion, Muslims ran with that, and everyone who reported it said, you see, this is because of all the people who are converting to Islam because of Dawah. When you could read the exact same report and it says it's not because of conversions, it's because of high birth rates among Muslims. And if you were to ask why there are higher birth rates among Muslims, it has something to do with Islam's impact on women and the age at which women and girls start giving birth and so on. And it's a bunch of stuff that would never make you conclude, wow, Islam must be true because it turns women into baby making machines. So what they did was they took a study which says that Islam is the fastest growing religion and it explained why Islam is growing rapidly because of high birth rates. And they twisted it into, you see, this is because of all the people recognizing the truth of Islam by our powerful Dawah arguments. And that was a great encouragement to all their Dawah fans. But now you got the statistics about the decline of Christianity in Great Britain and an increase in Islam. And they say, you see, these Christians are converting to Islam because they're recognizing the Bible's false and the Quran is true. When in reality, you have a bunch of people becoming atheists and you're bringing in a bunch of Muslim immigrants. That's actually what's going on.
Yeah, I think the data was, I looked at this back then quite a bit. I even made videos on that. But I think according to Pew Research, in the growth of Islam globally, 99.7% of it is due to birth rates and age, while only 0.3% is because of conversions. I think that was the number. I will check that while we're talking just to see if I can correct myself.
Yeah, and some of the other interesting statistics from way back then when people are actually doing research was over half of converts to Islam leave Islam within 2 years. And I'm not sure what the most recent study is in the U.S., but a couple years ago it was Islam can't gain any ground in the U.S. by conversions, because for everyone who converts, someone else is leaving. And so you're not increasing at all in the U.S. by conversions. It's only by immigration or birth rates. That's the only. And so the population in the U.S. tends to hover around 1% of the population. And so what is there here that would be any reason to think that Islam is true or that people are recognizing that Islam is true? There's nothing except the misrepresentation. Just let's twist the data to make it sound like everyone's recognizing that Islam is true and everyone's converting to Islam. When if you actually took that seriously, hey, people are converting, well, most of the people who are leaving Christianity are becoming atheists. Would that mean that atheism is true? Would any Muslim accept that as a reason to believe that atheism is true? Of course not. When we say that between 5 and 10% of Muslims in Muslim countries are actually closet atheists, that means that in recent decades, you've had a ton of conversions to atheism. Does that mean atheism is true, Muslims? No. But if that happened anywhere else, if the population changed and did a big swing in the direction of Islam, you would say, see, it's clear proof that Islam is true, and everyone's just seeing the power of our arguments.
Alhamdulillah.
Pretty dumb.
Yeah, I think I have the quote here. Wait a minute. In demographic models, the net impact of religious switching accounted for an estimated 23% of unaffiliated growth and 0.3% of Muslim growth, while reducing Christian growth by 7%. So nobody is converting to Islam, basically.
Yep, conversions are not helping you, ladies and gentlemen. But what? Even Sneeko? Even Sneeko.
That is from Pew Research 2017, The Changing Global Religious Landscape. That's it. Yeah.
All right, let's go through a few super chats and then we'll listen to more of Chris and our good friend Saif talk. Saif, has Saif ever reported anything accurately? Who's less accurate in the way he handles information, Saif talk or Apostate Aladdin? Because I can't think of anything that Apostate Aladdin got right either.
I must say, Apostate Aladdin is probably more accurate than Saifi.
Hey, they should both make a video responding to you, and we'll watch them and see who's less accurate. And that would be like the Olympics of getting things wrong.
That would be great.
All right, Solitary Emmy says, that was a sticker. When are they going to give us the ability to see stickers?
Yes.
Ryan Gasling, who met with Hitler. Avalanche of Apostasy is like a GD disaster movie. What's that mean?
Like a GD disaster movie.
Like
yes,
Godzilla.
that's what it means. Yeah, that's what it means.
What should our attitude be toward Uyghurs in China?
Uyghurs? It's Uyghurs. Gotta say it properly.
I'm gonna say Uyghurs, like every other American.
Uyghurs. What do you think? So I would say we spoke about this quite a bit in the past. Right?
I made videos about this in the past.
Yeah, and we both were kind of in agreement on the position that we don't think that it is something that should be praised. The treatment of Uyghur people and others in China. One of the reasons is also that what China is doing is not to say, "Oh, Islam is a dangerous religion and a bad religion. We must limit it and we must control it." That's not what is going on there. What's going on is that China is very, very eager to suppress any kind of ideology or ethnic identity or other identity that conflicts with their stated communist or post-communist Chinese communist ideology. So anything that poses a threat to it must be somehow suppressed and assimilated into their own communist culture. And the Uyghur culture is considered a threat to the fabric, and the Uyghur Muslim culture is not the only one that is targeted here. There are also Christian minorities and other minorities that are being targeted that are just not talked about as much because they are not as big as the Uyghurs and not as loud as the Uyghurs. So China's policy is similar to Soviet policy in that they're trying to suppress religious and dissenting ideological sentiments, and that is nothing that I can possibly applaud. And they also, put people into re-education camps and do all kinds of terrible things like that. That is not how you change people. That is how you build resentment in people and how you build cold robots.
Yeah. So, and I agree. So this is not a group recognizing that Muhammad is a false prophet and finding and thinking that Islam is this one dangerous position, and so we're cracking. They're communists. They have a problem with religion in general, and if you are some part of some group that is going to get in the way of the state, they believe that you have to be crushed, and they'll do that to anybody else. So, not a fan. Especially when they're, I mean, at least if their reports are accurate, but there are tons of reports about what goes on. In the past, there was organ harvesting and so on. And they apparently cut that down but it was interesting because the people who were going there to buy the Uyghur organs were wealthy Muslims from Muslim countries who didn't want to get organs that could have been contaminated by pork or alcohol or something like that. So they want organs from Muslims. And so you'd go to China and say, hey, I need a new kidney, and I want a 100% halal certified kidney. No problem. Oopsie, this Uyghur just died, and here's your matching kidney. So they're doing things like that. They're bringing in people to rape the women and so on, torturing people. Pretty nasty affair. Yeah, not a fan. Not a fan. AP, you racist. You are against death for apostasy. That is true.
I am pretty racist. Yeah.
Definitely racist against the death penalty for apostasy.
Yes. That is.
And think about the feelings you could be hurting. If someone who believes in killing you for apostasy were to tune in right now and look at this and see you criticizing the death penalty for apostasy, think about how that would hurt his feelings. Gosh, what's wrong with
I have to do this differently. I have to, like, if I'm going to address something as controversial as apostasy laws, I'm supposed to put a stupid mask on my face, which I can't even find right now.
Yeah, you need a mask and a hat.
It is also worthy pointing out that applying apostasy laws is not helpful. And as an individual who may or may not be affected by apostasy laws, I feel the need to express that I disagree with it because it threatens my survival, and that is not nice. Just put yourself in this position, and
that's it. That's all you need to do, and that will change the world. That will change the world.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. This will cause the avalanche of feelings.
We need the avalanche of feelings, everyone. AP and D Wood, who are your favorite stand-up comedians? Chappelle, Norm Macdonald, Bill Burr. AP, do you even have a favorite comedian?
I don't really watch much. I watch Ricky Gervais when he brings out a new thing because he kills me.
Oh, because he's an atheist. Ha ha ha.
No, not.
Yeah, religious people were stupid. Yeah. Good. What a good point.
That's the only guy that I so far that I genuinely when I see that he's coming out with a new special, I'm like, oh yeah, I have to watch that, and I sit down and watch the whole thing, and I die. Yeah,
literally.
Messianic
Apostate says, what is your response to Palestinian Christians who harshly criticize Israel? They give me major Dhimmi vibes, and I can't stand Dhimmi apologists. Yeah, we talked about this a number of times in the past. I said I actually understand it because it's a similar dynamic to when I was in prison. So in prison, you've got Christians and Muslims and atheists and so on. You have all these different groups. But we're all kind of part of the same group. We're on one side of the issue, and it's the guards and the administration who are on the other side of that issue. So they're the outsiders. We're all together, and they're actually the enemies. That's what you view them as, right? When you got a guard coming in, he's on a completely different side. And when a guard does something messed up, and they do some messed up things, it's really, it has an impact on you. Like, look, they can get away with this because they're so powerful, and they can come in and do whatever they want to us because they're so powerful. And it just breeds more and more resentment against the guards and the administration and so on. But as for the other people in there that you're inmates with, we're all on the same side against them. And so following that sort of dynamic, if you got Christians and Muslims in the West Bank and Gaza, but those are people in your community. Even if you don't get along with them terribly well, they're still in your community, and there's still a different group, an outside group, who is massively more powerful than you, and they kind of give you the impression that anytime someone crosses a line, they can come in there and do whatever they want, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's just a sucky feeling, and that does breed resentment, and it does make you despise that other group. So that's my view. But notice, doesn't change the fact that there's no way forward, not for the Israelis, not for the Palestinian Christians, not for the Palestinian Muslims. There is no actual path to peace as long as a group like Hamas is in charge and is holding hostages and stuff. So no matter what else happens, you got to crush Hamas. You got to bring back the hostages, and then you can start figuring out a plan for moving forward. But this doesn't work out for anybody. This is not good for anybody except for the people around the world who are cheering them on because they hate Jews.
Indeed. Pretty much, I would agree with that. Would say that the Palestinian Christians, as they describe themselves, I wouldn't be necessarily as insulting or hostile or belittling toward them, and I would try to rather understand where they're coming from. It is a very difficult situation. They are in the middle of a conflict, and the way they see it is Muslims and Jews are basically fighting, and we are caught in the middle of it. And depending on where they find themselves, or which side to they are closer, or where they live, they will be affected in one way or another, and thereby form their opinions. When they are on the Palestinian side, even to them, it will look like the other side, on the other side of the fence, is basically oppressing you, and you build resentment against the oppressor because of that. And they are very much influenced by the Muslim way of thinking and the Muslim Arab sentiments that they are surrounded by, and that they at whose mercy they also live, especially if you're in Gaza. But yeah, we talk to different people, and they have different opinions on this stuff, and they are aware that that Islam is a big problem, but especially if they are in Palestinian territories, they are not very, 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 very happy with the Israeli side either, just because of the consequences of this conflict. It's a very difficult situation. Not sure what else to say.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that's our perspective on that. I'm still thinking, I was thinking about it months ago when all this was happening, about making just a quick video breaking it down as far as what it's like to be part of one community, even with people you disagree with, but there's an outside force that's much more powerful than you, and so on. But I don't know, maybe I'll do that at some point. Your opinions on Christopher Hitchens?
I love that guy. I often think it would be fantastic if he was still alive, and if he was still saying all the, giving all the speeches that he gave, because he was very direct. He would say whatever he thinks, would be very open and direct about it. He was very witty and intelligent and all that. Yeah, I think he was a great figure, and I'm really curious how he would respond to things that are going on at this time right now, with, like, after he died, lots of the political arena, the whole wokeness, censorship, safe spaces, Islamophobia, and stuff like that. All of that changed dramatically, and I'm really wondering how he would have reacted to all of this. But yeah, I liked his work. I like his work that he left behind.
Yeah, so Christopher Hitchens, super smart. Don't agree with a lot of his conclusions. Master of rhetoric. Like, you could possibly be equal to him in his ability to make a point and get it across in witty fashion. You could possibly equal him, but I don't think you could surpass his rhetorical ability. I do think that whole crowd, that whole new atheist crowd, made a huge blunder. That's why I can't have the utmost respect for them. I think they were making a very stupid move. They thought, I mean, if you're sitting around and it's Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins and Daniel Dennett there and Sam Harris there, and you're sitting around, wow, look how smart we are. We get along. We don't need any religion here. We don't have any religion. We don't need any religion. We're very sophisticated. We get along. This is the high life. Why can't the entire world be like this? Well, if we just get rid of religion, then the entire world would be like this. And that was the absolute dumbest, one of the dumbest blunders in the history of humanity, because not everyone thinks like you, and you didn't just wake up to that spot one day. Many generations of people who came before you changed society in ways that allowed you to get to that point. And when you're just your plan is to sweep it all out, get rid of it all, and like you're just going to be hovering there. And what actually happened? Well, they were pretty effective. You see the statistics in the decline in Christianity. What happens? Everyone loses their minds, starts worshiping other things as idols, and you can't get Islam fast enough. We need Islam. We can't get enough Islam. That's what actually happens. So the point is something goes completely out of whack, and we'll see what happens.
I always find it funny how Christopher Hitchens acted in the debate with William Lane Craig, where William Lane Craig was like very, very, very thoroughly making his arguments, and Christopher Hitchens looked like he wasn't in the mood at all in that debate. He was like he just totally ignored everything. It's like whatever, man. And
Smartest move he could have made.
And was being a complete jerk, and it was interesting.
That sounds like Christopher Hitchens. Swiss Apologetic says, I translated some of your vids to German. Yeah. But my Dome of the Rock vid is much better because I abrogated your lame Baroque images and replaced them with superior apostate Baroque images. Oh, that'd be funny.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out. Swiss Apologetics, everyone. To be honest, AP is more Christian than the Christians of England nowadays. How does that make you feel, AP, knowing that you're more Christian than the Christians of England nowadays? Does that hurt your feelings? Does that make you go, oh, no, I need to be more atheist?
I don't agree with it, but no, it doesn't bother me in any way, if that's what you mean.
Yes, you are. Your feelings are hurt.
It's kind of nice, but I don't really think it's true. So that's that.
Also, importing Muslims en masse would affect the demographics. Yes, that's been pointed out.
It's time to stop. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Normal is overrated. Is the Muslim featured in this video just trolling his Muslim audience? I refuse to believe he can be so dumb. Is this a new trend? Trolling Muslims by pretending to be Muslim, i.e. Ali, Mimi, Fifi, etc.
Here we have somebody who is making a super chat on David Wood's channel saying that I am a troll.
That is pretty good. You're getting... It's funny. 2 years ago, I did not think of you as an impression guy at all. And yet you're crushing some of these, man.
I just needed to free myself and be braver and put myself out there.
Yeah. So, my view is, I think these guys are serious, but I've pointed out before, if I were trying to destroy Islam from within, or if I were just a complete grifter, I would be acting the exact same way. In other words, if you look and you've got an entire population out there, you've got well over 1 billion people who are panicking because of the avalanche of apostasy, and they're terrified because their kids are going to be apostates, and they want to cling to any Dawah guy who can rescue Islam from the avalanche. That becomes very easy to insert yourself into that situation. Go, guys, I'm the ones who are going to save you. I'm the ones who are going to save your kids. I'm the ones who's going to rescue Islam. Here's a bunch of videos of me doing just that. And it's a very easy way to take advantage of a desperate community. So you can get very, very, especially if you're a narcissist, you can get all kinds of attention very, very quickly by just making a bunch of dumb Dawah videos.
Oh, by the way, the person earlier said it's supposed to be Church of England, not Christians of England. I understand that you would not know because you're not familiar with Christian.
I'm also don't know anything about England or how they do things over there.
Yeah.
The only thing I know about them is we dump their stinking tea into our stinking harbor.
That's
and
good.
Let that be a lesson to you, British people.
Based. Don't forget that.
Yeah. A couple more, and then we'll jump back into this video. David, nice to see you again. Who is your Italian guest? This is my friend Giuseppe.
It's Alberto Paolo Pellegrini.
That's my name. Yes.
Oh, man. Little cold. Hey, let's see. Here's that dinner I would have bought you, D. Wood. It was a pleasure meeting you in Florida. All ham to Alan.
Alan.
Yeah,
Greetings
that's cool.
Shout out to Ellen. Yeah, shout out to Ellen.
You just paid for dinner for me and my wife. Cha-ching.
Nice.
Atakan said, I've been part of the Avalanche since I discovered AP 3 years ago via his stream with, what is that name?
It says Ateism Derneği, which is the Turkish Federation for Atheism, which I was part of at some point to stream, but then I said, hey guys, I don't really want to be part of this anymore.
Yep, too many atheists. AP only likes being around Christians.
And I like to be the only atheist. When I see other atheists, I feel like I'm not special anymore, and I'm supposed to be special. So
yeah,
either you go away or I will leave.
Yeah, I get that. You got to be the center. You got to be the center of attention. Yeah,
always.
So it's funny. It's like, so you and Apostate Aladdin, you both have this obsession with being the center of attention, but you've got it, and he doesn't, and that's why he hates you.
Alhamdulillah.
Sorry to have missed you in Jerusalem last month. I was volunteering in Judea and Samaria with Ha-Yovel and got to see much of what you did, it seems.
Nice.
Nice. We got to go over there.
We do.
To Judea and Samaria.
That's
the West. That's what everyone calls the West Bank, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's the real name of the West Bank. I
went to synagogue yesterday and told the guys about the Quran saying the Jews follow Ezra as the Messiah. It's actually Son of God. Son of God. And in the Hadith, the Jews, the main accusation on Judgment Day, the main accusation against Jews is, why did you worship Ezra? Their faces were genuine, organic shock, confusion, and contempt. You should have seen it. Also, I've written lyrics for a song of mockery. Can you help me, Sal? Oh, yeah, Sal's the one who's been doing the music.
You should arrange that.
Yeah, I talked to some Jews. I did want to get a recording. I didn't end up getting the recording, but I was talking to a couple Jews and telling them, hey, you know, the Quran says that you guys believe Ezra's the son of God, and Muhammad in the Hadith says that you worship him. So what's up with that? And the response from one of them was, a better question you might want to ask Jews is, can you name me any one thing you know about Ezra besides like I have a cousin named Ezra? Can you name anything? Right? So the idea that they're actually over there worshiping Ezra and they don't even know anything about him. Anyway, weird situation.
If you told them, if you asked them about people calling Ezra the Messiah, I think that could be an explanation for that, right? If you at some point in Jewish tradition, Ezra could be seen as some form of Messiah or something like that. There could have been a strain or a tradition, something at some point like that. Maybe that's also, I don't know how it happened, but that is definitely not the same as calling Ezra the son of Allah and Jews calling him the son of Allah and worshiping Ezra. How in the world did that even get into into Muhammad's or the Quran's narrative? It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, especially when in both the Quran and the Hadith, it's in a way that supposedly parallels Christian belief. In other words, it's Jews say Ezra's the son of Allah and Christians say the Messiah is the son of Allah. So it's both in the context of you're worshiping something other than Allah, and it's used as a blanket criticism of the Jews, just as it's used as a blanket criticism of Christians. But then in the Hadith, you find the exact same thing. Christians on the Day of Judgment, the main accusation against them is, why did you worship Jesus? And then the main accusation against the Jews is, why did you worship Ezra? So it's supposedly very widespread. And the idea, maybe it was just some localized group a long time ago, doesn't fit. Because again, this is Jews in general on the Judgment Day. Why are you guys worshiping Ezra?
It don't fit.
Huge problem. In fact, I mean, if you didn't know anything about Islam other than it's just making that claim about Jews and it's completely wrong, that's enough to raise some red flags and going, what's going on here?
I would say this is just one reason where you can, like, if you deal with it if you deal with it to a great extent, it is an argument that you can use to conclude that Islam is clearly false, because it is something that the Quran says. The Quran makes a false claim. There is no way to resolve this problem except to conclude that the Quran is wrong on this, and if the Quran is wrong about this, and the Quran is supposed to be the eternal word of Allah, then that means the Quran and therefore Allah is making a false statement, and that is contradictory to the Quran's claim that Allah is the Almighty, all-knowing, and that the Quran is free of faults. So if you conclude that that statement is false, then Islam altogether is false. This disproves Islam.
That disproves atheism. Hey.
Alhamdulillah. Yes.
All right, back to Chris here. We still got a bunch of super chats, but let's go ahead and check out some more of this video.
Yes.
Put an answer when they were.
So, Dove here just said, I'm Jewish. Who the F is Ezra? That's basically the reaction I got in Israel.
People go.
He has a significance in the history of Judaism, right? And if you are a scholar,
from the return, the return of the exile and so on. Yeah, it's very important. But
if you study it, you learn the significance of Ezra, but it doesn't really play a great role in the average Jew's life or teachings. So, yeah.
Those people who stopped being Christian, what religion did they pick up as instead? What did they convert to? Well, they converted to nothing. They converted to atheism. And it's pretty much almost one for one. In other words, every person that left Christianity, about 95, if not above %, went to either agnosticism, atheism, a spiritual belief, or nothing. As in, they didn't even put an answer when they were asked. So how do we explain the absolutely tiny increase in percentage-wise of the population being Muslim? Well, like I said, it's immigration. People have known this for long periods of time. And the Dawah groups have been saying again and again, the avalanche of apostasy is upon us. Our youth are leaving Islam in crazy numbers. 25% of the Muslim youth are leaving Islam. Well, yeah, because it's a terrible religion.
I want to tell you something that I've studied. I've studied. Okay. It's the religion with the large number of defectors, the largest number of defectors. Did you know that? I can tell you. That doesn't mean the number of defectors is more than the number of those who enter, but from all others, those who are leaving Islam, and you don't even know, people are living in your home, and it's second, third generation in the Western world, they're not even Muslim. They're not even Muslim. They don't care about Islam, but their name is Muslim, and you think they're Muslim because they're in the situation. I did a little survey of Salatul Eid, and I found that 50% of the guys don't even go to Eid. They don't even go to Eid.
SubhanAllah. And we have access.
That is the prayer on the holiday, on the Ramadan conclusion festival. When you go to the prayer, it's a very, very special occasion that Muslims are supposed to attend, but apparently 50% don't attend it at all. It's very funny.
And so we just saw there yet another example of when Muslims are talking to us. They're thumping their chest. You see, we're spreading so rapidly. Everyone is becoming Muslim right now, so strong because of our Dawah. And behind the scenes, when they're making their own videos, it's guys, we've got a serious problem here. People are leaving Islam like crazy. What are we going to do about this? And we have no clue. So, big difference between what they're saying publicly while they're thumping their chests and what they're acknowledging among themselves.
To the internet now. Check out this really cool map. You can check the latest census data for England and Wales, and you can search for it by...
Hey, this is cool. This is why I wanted to watch this video. Watch what he brings up here.
Religion. Here we can see all the places in which there is no religion. People who have answered they are atheist or in some sense agnostic or spiritual but not religious. As you can see, there is quite significant numbers across the UK. We're ranging at 40%. I mean, generally you could say the average is 40%. Here is quite high, 56%, 48%, 40%. You get the idea. Now let's do the same for Christian. Oh look, it's very similar. We see.
So what he's pointing out here is you have a range of densities of Christians in various areas, right? So yes. You have high concentrations, you have lower concentrations, but you have Christians and atheists are very widespread in the UK. So you go across the UK, you can find significant numbers of Christians, you can find significant numbers of atheists wherever you go. So guys, look at that map because he's about to compare it with Muslims, the locations of Muslims. Here we go.
Areas of high concentrated Christianity, 50% over here, 60%. and areas where there are low, like over here at 36%. But generally speaking, there is good coverage of Christians in the UK, just as there is good coverage of people who are atheists or agnostic in the UK. Now let's look at Muslim. Oh, the vast majority
Oopsie.
has next to no Muslims at all. In fact,
Interesting, isn't it?
Oh no, that's
The
bad news.
vast majority of the UK has no Muslims. They're very localized around certain cities. In other words, you go to the vast majority of the UK, you're not gonna see any Muslims. So if you're thinking, look, it's taking over the UK, well, it's taking over certain cities, but not taking over the rest of the UK, where it's almost completely insignificant. Not insignificant politically and so on, because you do have politicians bending over backwards to appease the Muslims in the city areas, but this isn't something that's just permeated the entire UK and is taking over. Let me back up a little bit here so you can compare that. So there you have Christianity.
here at 36%. But generally speaking, there is good coverage of Christians in the UK, just as there is good coverage of people who are atheists or agnostic in the UK. Now let's look at Muslim. Oh, the vast majority has next to no Muslims at all. In fact, the overwhelming majority of the UK, probably about 90-ish% of it, has less than 1% of its population being Muslim. Great job, guys. Instead, all of the areas with a significant Muslim population are focused in cities, large cities. In fact, you can basically narrow it down to Manchester, Birmingham, and London. Islam isn't spreading at all. It's just isolated into areas of significant wealth that are good for economic reasons, which is exactly why it attracts immigrants. Immigrants don't come to the UK to live in the middle of nowhere in a tiny little village. Instead, they go to the cities. And that's why there are now areas of London that are predominantly Muslim. Not because they were all convinced of the Dawah and that London had a sudden change of heart, but rather because a lot of people went there. That is...
Yeah, so isn't this funny? I mean, it's really simple once you put it in there. You look at so Muslims, the way they're looking at the statistics, look, the percentage of Muslims in the UK went from this to this. You see, Islam is taking over the UK. When in reality, you just had a bunch of Muslim immigrants who went into particular cities. And it's a lot. It's a lot of them. But if you were to really flesh out the argument that they use. So if you just go with the growth of Islam, that Islam is the world's fastest growing religion. Muslims represent that as, Islam is the world's fastest growing religion because so many people are converting to it, because so many people are reading the Quran and recognizing that Islam is true. Wrong. That's completely wrong. Even according to the study that you guys apparently read the title of and never bother to read anything in it. If you were to actually make an argument based on the real reason Islam is spreading, you'd have to say, well, when a religion gives women nothing to do except have babies, and they're not going on and they're not having careers or anything like that, and in places like Afghanistan, they're not going to school beyond grade 6 and so on. There's nothing for them to do. So they get married off at a young age. They start having kids. And by the time a woman in the West is having her first child at age 28, the Muslim girl in Afghanistan is on baby number 12, right? That's why Islam is growing rapidly, according to the study that said that Islam is the world's fastest growing religion. That's one reason. Islam's impact on women leads to high birth rates. If you wanted to make an argument, you would say, because Islam has this impact on women and turns them into baby-making machines, Islam must be true. I would love to see a defense of that, but at least it would be accurate with the information. Then the other issue is, why is Islam growing in places like the UK and France? Because of immigration. So what if you wanted to represent the argument accurately, not the way the Dawah guys do, look at the percentage of Muslims, it's growing. This is because of the power of Islam and because of all the conversions and Dawah. If you were to state it accurately and to try to make an argument out of it, you'd have to say, Islam just does such a crap job making countries where people want to live that the people who live there can't get out of there fast enough, and they want to move to Western countries where they're not under Islamic law. And Islam does such a terrible job making countries where anyone wants to live that Muslims want to get out of there as fast as possible And therefore, Islam must be true because it can't make a place where people actually want to live.
And then once they are out of there and they move to these fantastic places, soon they feel the need to turn these places into those places that they came from in order to make it all terrible again. And that's will be the beautiful future.
Yep. A couple comments here. The Adventures of Shake It Off. Of all the videos you have both made, which do you think have had the most impact in terms of making Muslims leave or at least think of leaving Islam?
Hard to say. I would say
Me too.
For me, it was one of those videos that were like that were the whole Mary problem. I made a video called "One Mistake Destroys Islam," and it was basically about how the Quran confuses the Marys and thinks that Mother Mary is also the other Mary, the other, or Miriam, the sister of Moses and Aaron. That video was very influential, I would say. And then another one was one of those, maybe that Ezra video, actually.
Yeah, I have. So I have lots of I have videos that are like my favorite videos on various topics, or that I think were the best, but I don't actually know if that corresponds to which of them had the biggest impact. Sometimes I'll make a video that's totally easy to make and it has a huge impact, and I had no idea that it was going to have a huge impact. But yeah, I don't actually know, because I've heard from tons of people over the years that said they left Islam after watching my stuff, but it's normally not specific. It's normally not, hey, it was because of this video. So I actually wouldn't know as far as which particular videos had the biggest impact.
See, he doesn't know.
He's ignorant. Beati says, hot take, if Christian Europeans never colonized the Americas, Muslims eventually would have, and we would likely all be Muslims today, simply put. Ha! You think they would have crossed the ocean?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. The Ottomans, for example, were quite behind. They were more focused on just by land conquering and expanding and all of that. They didn't have the same interests that Europeans had for centuries by then. They I don't know. They just didn't have the same ambitions. They were all about direct, in person, going with armies and conquering whatever they encounter. They thought differently, and they still do think differently. Yeah.
Let's see. Glad you previously implied you connected with Yeshai from Hebron despite not making it there. I tagged you together on X in the hopes you would. God bless. What? Did you imply you connected with him?
Oh, I actually did connect with him. Yeshai, he got in touch with. I actually met him at that thing at the event where Michael Rappaport and the Visegrad guy and others, Aviva, they were present and they talked. And at that event, I met Yeshai Fleischer. He's a spokesperson of the settler community in Hebron, and he wanted to meet and talk. Still supposed to do that.
The settler community? Those are your new buddies?
Yes.
D Wood, please cut your beard. Too sad seeing Luigi without a Mario. Yeah, I would take that seriously if it wasn't from Al Aqsa TV. Islam spreads as fast as cancer, so it must be true. Yeah,
it is.
That is an ongoing problem, though. If it spreads rapidly, then it must be true. It's like, gosh, communism was one of the fastest spreading things ever. What does that have to do with whether it's true or not? If it spreads like COVID, it must be true. Weird.
Well, and we all know what happened with the plague. Therefore, it was true.
Senor Ridvan is my new favorite atheist. Sorry, AP.
Thank you.
Prefers the Senor Ridvan.
Thank you. Grazie.
Rick Newton, you see, atheism is nothing. Christ is king. Poor Dawah Muslims still believe Momo was the best of all mankind. Yeah, it is. It is funny. They still believe that guy's the best.
Nice.
Who gets it most wrong, Sneeko or this guy or the other guy? Well, I mean, yes, Sneeko doesn't get it. When does Sneeko get anything right? This guy,
Okay, honestly, true. That's probably right. Sneeko is probably the worst of all of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because he has no idea what he's talking about on anything. At least, like Saif Talk is giving some correct information about Islam. He just doesn't understand what anyone is saying, and he doesn't respond accurately at all.
Yeah.
According to Apostate Aladdin, I'm an old white nationalist and not a liberal Jew, lol. More and more Muslims are choosing the cow, by the way. Most Muslims are already better people than the warlord Mo.
Nice.
Yeah, most Muslims are better than their prophet. Have you seen the Dawah script? Have you seen the Dawah script PDF that's online? You should react to it. Oh, do they actually have a Dawah script now?
What?
He says there's a PDF of the Dawah script.
That's funny. I shall check it out.
Hi, D Wood. Did you have a chance to talk to some prominent Christian community leaders? The numbers of Christians leaving holy Christian sites in Judea and Samaria is quite sad. Nazareth and Bethlehem mostly. Yeah, that does suck. So you did have places like Bethlehem and Nazareth, which were mostly Christian areas, and now they're not, as far as I know. Now they're mostly Arab Muslim areas. And isn't that weird?
It is.
Wouldn't it be great for Christians to live amongst Muslims, and yet they want to get out of there?
Which is, of course, very Islamophobic.
Heavy Heart Show. To answer the title of the live stream, no, lol. That is correct. That is my assessment too. Dawah is not going to stop the avalanche of apostasy. In fact, they are such terrible strategists that I think they're going to actually make the problem worse, significantly worse, especially when all the Dawah guys have serious personality disorders.
That is true.
Carson Depp says, any actual reliable figures on Muslim apostasy? Anecdotally, I can find more Jewish ex-Muslims than Jewish converts to Islam. Yeah, there have been lots of studies on apostasy. You have to be careful, because if you're just doing like a door-to-door poll in a Muslim country and you're knocking on doors, hey, are you a Muslim? That's not going to be accurate at all, because if you're an ex-Muslim in a Muslim country, you're not going to want to say. So there have been situations where people rely on anonymous polls or online polls and so on. And then in the West, various studies have been done. But yeah, that was a statistic several years ago that in the West, 24% of Muslim youth are leaving Islam. It was a statistic from several years ago that in the United States alone, 100,000 Muslims were leaving Islam every year. It was a couple years ago that there was an online poll that said only 40% of people in Iran still identify as Muslim, even though it would have been close to 100% if you were to just poll door to door. That one could be skewed, because that's only polling people who have internet access. You could have villages and so on where it's different. So it wouldn't be exactly 40%, but point is tons and tons and tons of statistics on this stuff. And that's why they're in absolute panic mode.
That's true.
Of course it is. Hey, Dove here says, I knew it, AP. Ricky Gervais is the best. No, he's not. Chappelle is the best. I don't even know how that's like a contest.
That reminds me, he made a joke on his last special, I believe, or the one before. I don't know. He did this terrible joke about
disabled special needs kids or something like that.
No. He was talking about Boris Johnson.
No, I remember the one that I heard about. Everyone flipped out about.
He said something about Boris Johnson. It was like Boris Johnson. He started out with by calling Muslim women that were burqas post boxes, and then he goes, "It's not up to Boris Johnson to decide what a Muslim woman wears on her face. It's up to her husband."
That's funny. That is a good joke. Oh, and I have to say, him what was he at? Was that the Emmys or the Oscars, or what was it?
Oh yeah, that was
legendary.
golden
That was the
gold.
greatest thing ever when he told all those people off. And it
That was
must have
the
been
golden
Golden Globe. It must have been so awkward after he told them that no one cares what you think. So get your award and sit down and shut up and stuff like that. And then these people had to get up and give speeches anyway because they prepared them for if they win. That must have been humiliating to have to do that.
That's true.
Just sing with me. Music, Walker, Texas Ranger theme song. Words, the eyes or the leather strap of the... I don't remember the theme song, but I will check that out. AP, you should play Mario in the next live action movie. Well, what is it, people? Mario or Luigi? You keep giving different answers.
It's me, Mario.
Yeah, and in later games, they actually looked different. But on the original, they're exactly the same. It's just their clothes were different. Day 2 of asking to listen to Yalla 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 Ya Nasrallah.
I need to see. I need to check that out.
David, I noticed you are not eating. Are you doing Ramadan? If I were doing Ramadan, I'd be gorging myself right now because it's after sundown. I would have a giant pile of food. Ooh, maybe we need to do something on that where you have piles of food and we say, hey, we're fasting. That'd be a fun live stream. Oh, we should do a Ramadan live stream. Oh, man, we got to do it. When's Ramadan start? Tomorrow?
Yeah.
We might need a big pile of food and do a special Ramadan show where we're gorging ourselves with food and say we're fasting. All right. Is attendance at the Hajj at an all-time low these days? I don't actually know. We'll have to see what happens.
I haven't followed any of the data on that at all. I never did. So
yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens in the Hajj this year. All right, back to Chris.
His point is very, very dumb.
And one of the reasons why Christianity
Did he say his point is very dumb?
Which is exactly why it attracts immigrants. Immigrants don't come to the UK to live in the middle of nowhere in a tiny little village. Instead, they go to the cities. And that's why there are now areas of London that are predominantly Muslim. Not because they were all convinced of the Dawah and that London had a sudden change of heart, but rather because a lot of people went there. That is it. His point is very, very dumb.
And one of the reasons why Christianity...
Hey, we have, fortunately, we have Apostate Aladdin here to jump in with that and respond to that rude comment.
Why would he use such a word? Imagine somebody joins this live stream right now and listens to that part. They would be immediately turned off and they would be traumatized for the rest of their lives after hearing such a statement. Can he not express his thoughts in a more respectful way and be more considerate of all those people who might not be strong enough to hear such words?
Point taken. I apologize on behalf of Chris at Speaker's Corner and on behalf of all Christians everywhere for the way he treated Saif Talk so terribly.
It's already too late. Apology not accepted.
Okay. Sad.
is declining is the Bible. People start believing that the Bible is...
Areas of significant...
Here's where he says that Christianity is declining because people are reading the Bible.
Wealth that are good for economic reasons. Which is exactly why it attracts immigrants. Immigrants don't come to the UK to live in the middle of nowhere in a tiny little village. Instead, they go to the cities. And that's why there are now areas of London that are predominantly Muslim. Not because they were all convinced of the Dawah and that London had a sudden change of heart, but rather because a lot of people went there. That is it. His point is very, very dumb.
And one of the reasons why Christianity is declining is the Bible. People start believing that the Bible is from God because they could finally read it freely. You might not know this simple fact, but
You're already laughing. They could finally read it freely. This just happened, AP. This just
and
happened.
He says you might not know this simple fact, but...
Yeah, this just happened recently, just recently, within our lifetimes. Christians suddenly got the ability to read the Bible. He's going to break it down.
Were denied access to the Bible. Only the church was allowed to read it. According to Heresy and Authority in Medieval Europe by Edward Murray Peters, pages 194 and 195. It quotes the canons of the Council of Toulouse in France 1229. Let's read Canon 14. We prohibit also that the laity should be permitted to have the books of the Old or New Testament unless anyone from motives of devotion should wish to have the Psalter of the Breviary necessary for divine offices or the hours of the Blessed Virgin. But we must strictly forbid their having any translation of these books. The Bible was not a public book, and people accepted Christianity blindly without even investigating what it says in the Bible.
So the first
You
But
catch all
okay,
that?
but how in the and when exactly did that change? When did that change?
Just like in the past couple decades, because he's saying that the reason
Oh.
people, everyone just started leaving Christianity is because they just got access to the Bible finally.
Oh, okay. It sounds like it changed even more frequently, just maybe like a few weeks ago or a few months ago or so. I don't know.
Yeah, it had to be so. Just so you know, Christians, you finally got access to the Bible very recently, last couple of decades, and then people started reading it for themselves for the first time in history, and then that's why everyone's leaving. That's why everyone's leaving Christianity. They finally read the Bible. All these people leaving Christianity, it's because they finally got access to a Bible and they read it and then they concluded that it's false. It's like Muslims. I know it doesn't bother you when the insanely stupid people that you follow say these kinds of things. I'm just telling you from the perspective of a non-Muslim. When we see that, it's like Dawah is a complete joke. Like, you guys are either deceptive or the dumbest people on the planet in Dawah. Which is it? Massively deceptive or insanely stupid? One or the other. When you say stupid things like that, and then you all rally around going, "Oh, great point, great Dawah."
I still remember when I was younger, that all the people were like, "I want to read the Bible. Why can I not read the Bible?" And then they were forbidden. It was forbidden. It was not allowed. It was illegal. And they were hunting people down for trying to translate the Bible. But then gladly it changed over the last
Yeah.
month.
All of a sudden, 2012, Christians finally had copies of the Bible that they could read. Amazing. 2012, for the first time in history. And then everyone left Christianity after they started reading the Bible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. All right. So let's see what Chris has to say about this.
is really dumb. Like really silly. Basically something to
Wait. Can Apostate Aladdin respond to this?
Please, I would urge you to express your feelings about these statements in a more respectful way, lest people who join be traumatized. Okay.
Investigating what it says in the Bible.
So the first point is really dumb, like really silly. Basically, something to do with the fact that Christianity in the UK, which is where I'm from and where I've been living my whole life, has been decreasing. Islam is increasing. Therefore, Islam good and true? Is that the point? He then talks about how this is because Christians are reading the Bible because they couldn't before, because it wasn't available to them, because it was hidden, and the church wouldn't translate the Bible for them. You know, I remember back in my day when I was struggling to get Bibles. You know, I just really wanted to...
He did what we just did, but he added music and stuff. That's funny. He had the same idea. All right, let's go back.
This is because Christians are reading the Bible because they couldn't before, because it wasn't available to them, because it was hidden, and the church wouldn't translate the Bible for them. You know, I remember back in my day when I was struggling to get Bibles. You know, I just really wanted a Bible. I wanted to open the Word, but the church wouldn't translate it into English for me. Of course, that's absolutely nonsense. The Bible has been available in the common language for hundreds of years. I mean, at the very least, 500 years. So it obviously has nothing to do with the Bible being translated for the first time. Christians have known their scripture for long periods of time. And again, you'd also have to demonstrate that they were being lied to about their doctrinal beliefs, which you can't demonstrate at all because they weren't, and we have historical documents to prove that the basic foundation of Christianity has been the same.
But then why does this text say that there was no translation available in the Middle Ages? Is this person lying to us? Obviously not, because we Muslims, we obviously can read and we are not stupid and we can understand that it was illegal.
Welcome to Scythe Talk, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Scythe Talk. Oh boy, this is Dawah. This is what's supposed to save these guys from the avalanche of apostasy, endless lies and stupidity. That's what's gonna save them.
Of the church at the time of Christ. The Islamic perspective, and I think this is projection, is that the Quran isn't really a Quran if it's not in Arabic. In fact, historically, there have always been issues with translating the Quran into other languages, largely because it openly admits the fact that there is complete nonsense in the Quran. And I don't mean that as some sort of petty insult. I mean that as an actual literal thing. There is nonsense in the Quran. In 29 of the different surahs of the Quran, they begin with opening verses of mysterious letters, as the scholars know them as, that are just Arabic letters that don't form any known words.
No, they're magic spells.
Alif, Lam, Ra. Alif, Lam, Mim. Yasin. Taha. Like all these things. And they can't be translated because of this, because the actual scholars themselves and the oral tradition that Islam supposedly thrives from don't have a clue what they mean. And if you don't know what they mean, they can't be translated. And as soon as you try and translate it, you end up with awkward things like this. Alif, Lam, Ra. These are the verses of the wise book. Alif, Lam, Ra. This is a book whose verses are perfected and then presented in detail from one who is wise and aware. Alif, Lam, Ra. These are the verses of the clear book. You know, it doesn't seem so clear if you can't translate it. I mean, it kind of seems like it.
What are you laughing at?
Just because of that.
I'm just saying, kind of rude and disrespectful. Imagine Apostate Aladdin tuning in and seeing you laughing at the Quran.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got carried away and forgot about all of the people who may be offended by my laughter. Oh no.
Okay, good. As long as you apologize and feel bad.
It's unclear. Huh. But don't worry, that's not a contradiction. Alif Lam Ra. This is a book which we have revealed to you, O Muhammad. That is by bringing...
What did he say? Did he say the Quran claims to be clear, but it's got all these things and no one knows what they mean? Hang on, let's see.
Yeah.
Translate it. You end up with awkward things like this. Alif Lam Ra. These are the verses of the wise book. Alif Lam Ra. This is a book whose verses are perfected and then presented in detail from one who is wise and aware. Alif Lam Ra. These are the verses of the clear book. You know, it doesn't seem so clear if you can't translate it. I mean, it kind of seems like it's unclear. Huh. But don't worry, that's not a contradiction. Alif Lam Ra. This is a book which we have revealed to you, O Muhammad. That is by bringing... No. You get the point. Another verse where it has nonsense in it. My personal favorite, though, is Surah 20, the Surah of Taha. The very first verse, Taha. Don't know if I'm getting the correct Arabic right for that nonsense word, but hopefully I am. And we can even look at the Arabic transliteration, and it just says Taha. Well done, guys. The Quran is a complete mess. Now, normally, as a Christian, I wouldn't be bothered by this. I don't hold to the doctrine of perfect preservation. Christians don't believe that the book came down from the sky and has been untouched since. That would be silly. Instead, what Christians believe is that man wrote down the scriptures. They are products of man that are inspired through the Holy Spirit, inspired through God. The Muslim perspective is perfect preservation. They do actually believe it came down from the sky, in effect. It was sent down, it was already done, it's all good. It's pre-existed for at the very least a long, long time, if not eternally, as the words of Allah. So for the Islamic perspective, having random letters and words that don't mean anything is a problem because your doctrine of perfect preservation is in serious trouble now. This isn't to mention that the Quran has at least 10 different authorized versions of itself.
Yeah, so he's going into the different kirat and so on, but yeah, just thinking because he pointed out that like da'is like Saif Talk are using projection here. That because people finally became aware of what's in the Bible, that's why they left Christianity. And no, you had to put together a completely fictional story about Christians just suddenly in our time being able to read the Bible and oh my goodness, this isn't what our leaders taught us, and then they leave Christianity. That is much closer to what's actually been happening in Islam. So for 14 centuries, Muslims have been insulated from hearing any sort of critiques of the positions of Islam, and they've been insulated from hearing any serious presentation of an alternative to Islam. And now, because of the internet, we can say what's actually in the Muslim sources, and Muslims are shocked about it, and they're leaving Islam. They're shocked because there's this light switch moment where they go, my imam told me about all the scientific miracles. I didn't know that it says that the sun sets in a muddy pool and that stars are missiles that Allah uses to shoot demons who try to sneak into heaven, and that semen forms between the backbone and the rib. Oh, my imam told me Muhammad's the greatest man who ever lived. I'm looking here. I didn't know he had sex with a 9-year-old girl. My imam told me the Quran's been perfectly preserved right down to the letter, dot for dot. Oh my goodness, look at all this stuff. So it's actually Muslims who are hearing that everything they've been told by their leaders is a lie, and they're leaving Islam because of it. And that's what Saif Talk says. Their leaders were lying to them, but now they read the Bible and find out what's actually in there. My goodness, this guy's dumb.
Yeah.
And I don't mean version like a translation, like the King James or the New International Version or ESV, for example. No. What I actually mean is the Quran has 10 different versions of itself called the Qira'ah, or the readings, which are authorized by scholars to be used in mosques. They have variants.
There's
lots
also-
and lots and lots of lovely variants. In fact, there is a very helpful book which is published by...
What's that?
There's also an additional thing, which is that it's not just that Christians had access to their books for a long time now, and that Muslims actually didn't. It's also that like even in today's time, Christians are frequently, if they are educated or raised as Christians, they are much more likely to read the contents of their Bible than Muslims are to read the contents of the Quran in a language that they understand. So the average Christian today knows much more about their own religion than the average Muslim knows about his own religion.
Yeah, so you're pointing out that lots of places they would be reciting the Quran in Arabic and would have not much of a clue there, whereas it would be the vast majority of Christians who would be reading the Bible would be reading it in their language and not listening to it in Greek or something.
Precisely.
Correct. That is true.
by Dr. Fadel Soliman from the Bridges Foundation, which is a Dawah team in Cairo, Egypt. They published a book. It is called the Bridges Translation of the 10 Qira'at.
You got that, AP?
Yes.
You got that? Me too.
Of the Holy Quran. And in that book, they very happily translate the different Qira'at variant readings in the footnotes for each verse of the Quran. Now, supposedly...
Yeah, so guys, that Bridges edition of the 10 Qira'at, you can just get that on Amazon if it's still there. But yeah, so they've got the Quran, and then they've got notes that tell you when different versions of the Quran have a different reading there.
From variants, 10 of them, by the way, go back to Muhammad. Muhammad said all of these, so it's all okay. Well, that means that Muhammad was a very strange kind of person.
So guys, because some of this will be new information for for some of you, so the position of Muslims who still want to maintain perfect preservation of the Quran, when it's now been exposed that there are these different versions of the Quran around the world, is that they somehow all go back to Muhammad. So Muhammad was revealing the Quran in multiple different ways. That's how desperate they are to defend their belief in perfect preservation when they actually have different versions of the Quran in different places around the world. So yeah, now that is for instance, that's the position of Farid, that these variants somehow all go back to Muhammad. So they're not mistakes. They weren't copyist errors or anything else like that. No, they all go back to Muhammad, which is complete insane nonsense. But let's hear what Chris here says.
Variant readings in the footnotes for each verse of the Quran. Now, supposedly, all these different variants, 10 of them, by the way, go back to Muhammad. Muhammad said all of these, so it's all okay. Well, that means that Muhammad was a very strange kind of person who would say scripture 10 different ways whenever he would recite the Quran. I don't buy that. I think that's obviously silly. One of my favorite variants is in the legendary verse of Surah 43, Ayah 81, where we read, "Say, O Muhammad, if the most merciful had a son, then I would be the first of his worshippers." I love this hypothetical that the Quran has, because Muhammad, Jesus, is Lord, and he is the Son of God, so you should worship him according to the Quran. What's interesting is that there's a variant when we get to the word son. In Arabic, there are different qira'at that translate this differently. Some translate it as children, or plural of sons. In other words, if the most merciful had sons, then I would be the first of his worshippers. There is quite a big difference between saying if he had one and if he had many. And there are many instances you'll notice in the Qira'at variants where one and many become confused, which in turn actually affects doctrine. Again, I don't see this as a massive issue because I hold to the Christian position. I don't believe that the text is perfectly preserved. I think the message is perfectly preserved. Everything that God wanted to reveal is revealed, and it is with us today. Islam, on the other hand, is in a really bad position, and I don't think Muslims are going to hold this for too much longer because it's getting ridiculous now. There's the famous Qira'at variant of Surah Al-Fatiha.
I think he's right. They're going to have to drop all this stuff. So, guys, just to understand the progression, in the Muslim community, it was for many centuries. It's understood that there are these different readings of the Quran and so on. Then, in the 20th century, they try to come out with a standardized version, the 1924 Cairo edition of the Quran, and since that became the most popular, it allowed Muslims to say, see, we all have the same Quran. It was complete nonsense. He came out with that in 1924. But it allowed Muslim da'is to say, see, look, your Quran matches up with his Quran. See, they're all the same Quran. We only have one Quran. No variance at all, ever. And they ran with this as their main argument for how you know the Quran is true, because it's been divinely, miraculously protected from any variation for 14 centuries. So it allowed them to use this complete deception. I mean, it was a total lie. It was a total lie. But it allowed them to use this for a while until people started pointing out some of the issues. And you could just go to their sources that talk about the history of the Quran and all sorts of problems there. You can look at actual manuscripts like Dan Brubaker does, where he puts manuscripts side by side, and they definitely don't line up. And then eventually Hatun showed up with 26 different Arabic Qurans. These were not 26 different translations. These were 26 different Arabic versions of the Quran. They all had text. Every last one of those had differences from the others. She shows up to Speaker's Corner, putting them in people's faces. And then what happens? Hijab goes to Sheikh Yasser Qadi. Hey, you have to explain this to us. What are we going to do? And that's when Sheikh Yasser Qadi, please don't talk about this. We can't talk about this in public. We can't talk about it. Because and this is why Sheikh Yasser Qadi is now an enemy to so many people like Fareed. Fareed has to acknowledge, any Muslim who's familiar with the textual history of the Quran has to acknowledge that you have these different versions of the Quran now. That's just a fact. So one position, if you still want to believe in perfect preservation, you have to say these all go back to Muhammad. So Muhammad revealed them in a bunch of different ways, and we still have those ways, and that accounts for the variance. And then you have Sheikh Yasser Qadi, who the real takeaway, when he said the standard narrative has holes in it, he's talking about the narrative among Muslim scholars, which is that these variants can all be accounted for in terms of ahruf and kirat, and somehow that all go back to Muhammad. That's the narrative that he was saying has holes in it. He was saying it doesn't. You've got problems with saying that these all somehow go back to Muhammad. And so Chris from Speaker's Corner here is pointing out this isn't going to last, because this is just going to be absurd as we bring out more and more information about these variants. And some of the variants actually contradict each other. You end up with contradictory meanings. And if you have contradictory meanings and you're saying somehow these all go back to Muhammad and they all go back to Allah, well, it's going to fall apart. It's not going to last. So I agree with him here.
There's also the whole thing, the whole dishonesty. Like when Fareed, for example, talks about this, he acts like, oh, there's nothing new, nothing changed, nothing at all. Like, I don't know what the problem is. They're acting like the average Muslim never really thought or never understood that there's only one single Quran. There are no discrepancies, no differences. Everything is completely the same, word for word, letter for letter, and everything there is. And now they acknowledge the differences, and they're acting like, well, this is nothing new. This is nothing new. Muslims always knew that this was the case. Muslims always
you
knew
notice that too?
This wasn't true, but. Sorry, Muslims didn't always know this. The average Muslim still doesn't really know this. And they are still trying to kind of suppress it and not make it public knowledge.
Yeah, so now everyone, again, this is very recent. You go back 6 or 7 years, almost every Muslim you ran into said perfect dot for dot preservation of the Quran from the time of Muhammad down to the present. That was just standard, and it was supposedly this miracle that's supposed to make us all convert. Then you had the holes in the narrative interview. It all fell apart. But now when you bring up textual variants and so on, I've seen it over on Fareed's page when he's watching one of our videos, and the people in the chat, David thinks we don't know about the different kirat and the different readings. It's like, wait, now all of a sudden you guys were telling the truth the entire time when you were basically just forced into acknowledging the different readings, and somehow now you weren't saying perfect dot for dot, letter for letter, with not one variant in the entire history of the tradition of the Quran. I've got Dawah books that say not one letter's difference between any two Qurans in the entire history of Islam. That is completely ridiculously false. By the way, I've got a book from Yasser Qadi's dad saying that. That's why Sheikh Yasser Qadi used to spit that complete nonsense. But yeah, and AAP, you saw that clip of Muhammad Hijab. I think it was Chris. Was it Chris? I think it was Chris here who went up to Muhammad Hijab and asked him about this and said, so Muslim scholars have been saying perfect dot for dot, letter for letter, preservation of the Quran. And Muhammad Hijab goes, what scholars? And this is Muhammad Hijab who used to defend this, and Muhammad Hijab who had various scholars saying this in his videos, pretending they never said that, pretending, oh, this is just Islamophobes making up the lie that we spread this lie. They're lying about us lying about this. And of course, some people put that clip of Muhammad Hijab, what scholars, acting like he's never heard that before, put it together with clips of both him and Muslim scholars that he's talking to, saying exactly that, perfect dot for dot, letter for letter. Welcome to Dawah. Welcome to Dawah, ladies and gentlemen.
This is what Dawah does to you. This is what Dawah does.
Makes you a compulsive liar and makes all your followers not care one bit.
Please be more respectful when you point that out.
I'll try. I'm sorry. Trigger warning, I identify as a Christian and an Islamic scholar. Do not mistake me for a good Christian or an actual good Islamic scholar. Also thinking about joining AP's cult.
Oh, join. We'll do great things.
Yeah. Everyone join AP's cult. Opinions on Ayn Rand.
Endorsing cults, you see.
Hey, you know about Rand and objectivism? I've never been terribly interested. Yeah, not really.
Not very much.
Seemed like elements were taken from various positions.
For some reason, very popular in some circles. I'm not very much familiar with it.
Yeah, never been interested. David, you and AP should use the tune. Is that your tune? David, you and AP should use the tune and a couple of rap songs to spread your message. It will get millions of views and get both your channels to 1 million subs and make more people jealous. If you want rap tunes, just stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, because you're about to get one. Capturing Kafir says, David says that not everyone thinks like me. Let's see what those guys think when my right hand possesses them. AP, are we going to be allowed to have your bacon cheeseburgers in your cult?
Yes.
Well, then I'm joining. If 15 pounds of TNT will cause an avalanche on a snow slope, Dawah would be like 1,000 pounds used on top of the Islam slope. It is true. And that is very much true. Yeah, I've compared it in the past to like being trapped in a boat and drinking salt water. You get thirsty enough, you take a drink of the salt water, but it just makes it worse. And then you get in this spiral where you can't control yourself. You start drinking more and more and more and more and more. And that's like the position that they're in with this Dawah. Dawah is salt water.
That actually sounds exciting. Yeah, and Dawah doesn't sound exciting. So
it's a me, Apostate Mario with cosplay.
Yes.
I think they're saying cosplay Jesus because of my long hair.
Oh yeah. You need to get into that whole role and show your hair more and wear some old things, Yes.
Hey David, you and AP should watch the Pints of Aquinas episode on the Shroud of Turin. It arguably proves the resurrection, and it's all scientific study by atheists, Jews, and Christians alike. Is there some new stuff? So I've kind of gone back and forth on that issue over the years. On the one hand, if the Shroud of Turin is authentic, you basically have a photograph of the resurrection. But there are some issues with it. But no, I'm interested in that. I'll check it out because I followed Habermas for many years when he's been talking about the stuff. But I've also looked at the criticisms and so on.
David thinks, oh no, I don't want to accept evidence. I don't care about evidence.
Brandon says, it was nice to see y'all live for once, but unfortunately I have to go. close my leather
No.
straps for the night, but ham, salam, bacon, or whatever they say. Indeed. Alhamdulillah. Another lovely Sunday evening with David and AP. Yeah, aren't the Oscars tonight?
Yes, they are.
Hey, we're competing with the Oscars. We've got 2,200 people watching us and probably 400 people watching the Oscars.
Pretty sure the Oscars are losing.
Mm-hmm.
If we checked Twitter right now, it would be us trending, not the Oscars.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Blue Moon says, I see online many Christians using this horrible war to spread lies, hate, violence against Jews. Suddenly Christian and Muslims are united, justifying rape and massacre. Isn't that a contradiction to Jesus' love and teaching?
I wouldn't say that this is a common thing. I would say that there are some Christian circles that have always been a little bit, hateful and problematic and not part of the mainstream that are indeed doing that. But mostly also certain Christian figures that are not really religious, but rather just political, that are engaging in that kind of stuff right now. It is there. I see it too. And it is a little bit disgusting because you also see Muslims getting into that and then, working with those people despite hating them, and at other times preaching hate against them, and it's just ridiculous. It is a dirty, dark political alliance at the moment.
Yeah. I have to say most of the Christians I know are not on the jihadi side, or not on the jihadi or Hamas side. Any who are going to be amplified by Muslims. So they're going to say, look, you see, finally we have a good one here. And so any of the voices, like, it's the same way with Jews. When they have a Jew that condemns Israel, they amplify this, and it suddenly looks like the most important Jewish person on the entire planet. But yeah, you definitely as a Christian should not be. Yeah, now you could be criticizing things on all sides and so on. And you could definitely criticize and say, hey, Israel, you shouldn't have done this. You shouldn't have done that, and so on. Hey, you should. There can be all sorts of room for that. But as far as like being on the side of Hamas and these Jews need to be wiped out or something like that, I'd say completely messed up and unacceptable.
Yes.
And we will humiliate you if you do that. I dare any Muslim to come to an Orthodox country for Dawah. D. Wood, great top actual numbers show North Africa, Middle East, China, Central Asia are converting to Christianity. Any thoughts? AP remind D. Wood, yes?
Yes.
Okay, AP reminded me, yes. I don't know any. I don't know the recent statistics on conversions in North Africa, the Middle East. Of course, like places like Iran, you have underground churches and. But as far as sub-Saharan Africa, that's gone. Christianity's been really booming down there in the 20th century, and also like South Korea, it's been growing rapidly and so on. But I don't know the statistics on like North Africa and so on. Might be good to get an expert on there on like trends and statistics just to update everyone at some point.
Yes.
Oh, and here's Dov. That I mentioned this earlier. I'm Jewish. Who the F is Ezra? Said almost every Jew in Israel. Grace says, hello, did you guys see and have subsequent hot takes with regard to the Jay and Jake debate? I still haven't watched that. Did you watch that yet?
I haven't. I saw I only saw bits of it, and I saw Jake getting totally embarrassed by Jay. And I saw the responses, the reviews of people who think that Jay totally crushed Jake. But I still need to watch it. I actually forgot about that. I put it on my list. Thought I would watch it once we're back. Then I forgot
maybe
about
we
this.
should go through some of it in a live stream.
We
like
should
watch them, like at least watch their opening statements or something like that, or maybe just have a really long live stream and try to go through a ton of it. I don't know.
Especially since Jake challenged both of us to debates and then backed out of them. It would be nice if you just can go through that.
Yeah, it was one thing like challenging us to debate and then backing out. It was something completely different, challenging us both to debate, us agreeing to all of them. I agreed to 4 debates with that dude. You agreed to debate him. And then he runs and says that I'm running from him and I refuse to debate him. It's like, my goodness, What is this? What does this religion do to people? Messianic Apostate, thoughts on the London police's two-tier policing? Yes, it does happen indeed. Just filling. It's keep in mind these are the same police who spent years completely ignoring the grooming gangs and what they were doing to little girls. They knew about it. It's being reported. They were so terrified of being called Islamophobes that they would not stop little girls from being drugged and gang raped and pimped and everything else. They wouldn't do it because they were worried about being called Islamophobes. What sort of job do you think those guys are going to do taking care of people and protecting people's rights in London? I would guess terrible job. They're going to bend over backwards to avoid offending Muslims. And if they have to throw non-Muslims under the bus to appease the Muslims, that's what they're going to do.
There was an incident yesterday, I believe, where some guy went to a rally and put up a sign that says Hamas are terrorists. And he had his sign taken away in a violent way. And that guy was put on the ground and arrested for breaching the peace. Later, the police did post about it in response to people pointing it out and say that that it was a mistake and that he was arrested or something.
Yeah.
But
he was released. Yeah, it's weird how those mistakes always go in one direction.
Yeah.
Hey, here you have Dear David and AP, forgive Aladdin. He is a good guy. He helps a lot of people from his background, is mostly serious in his content, which is why he fails to see your dark humor / sarcasm. Pray for, you heard it here, AP. You have to pray for Apostate Aladdin. So
I don't have a problem with anybody, including with that guy. But
yeah, have we ever come out blasting at him because he does things differently from us? No.
But you saw it, right? His video about me was just a complete smear campaign and deliberately things taken completely out of context, misrepresented, made me look like somebody who's trying to I don't know.
That was the issue for me.
Attract white nationalists and things like that. What?
Yeah, I can view you as a good guy. You could do things completely differently from the way I do them, and I would think it's good because it's good to have different approaches because different approaches will be effective with different kinds of people. So I would definitely not have a problem with him having a completely different kind of approach. I would have zero problem with that. I'm not a fan of the, hey, here's how I do things, therefore that's the way everyone else needs to do things. Never liked that. So when someone's like, this is the way I do things, so you have to as well, I'm not going to get terribly angry over it, but I think it's stupid and short-sighted. But yeah, my view significantly changed when I saw him just completely twisting things. And the fact that we watched his entire video and he didn't seem to accurately represent anything that we said at any point. And so it's giving him the benefit of the doubt. He has terrible, absolutely awful listening comprehension. He does not understand what people are saying. He does not understand what he's reading, in which case he should have the wisdom not to go around criticizing people because he doesn't understand anything they say.
Precisely.
Yeah. So yeah, but that's giving him the benefit of the doubt. If we don't give him the benefit of the doubt and he's deliberately being deceptive with AP.
I mean, I did feel, honestly, after our stream last night, which was hilarious and very enjoyable, I felt a little bit bad for being so harsh on that guy. But then I also quickly remember why exactly we did that, and remember how he acted in his video. And often at other times I would have just thought, oh, you know what, I'm not gonna respond to this, just go away. But I did that so many times in my life, and maybe it's just Apostate Aladdin just found me at such a time where I'm not in the mood of just being the better guy. And yeah.
Hey, this is cool. I thought I was going to have to wrap up at 10 because we didn't have a nurse tonight, and my wife just texted me and said a nurse showed up and she forgot she was on the schedule. Huh.
Based.
Well, I think we can get through. We can get through Chris's video here.
Well, look at that.
Nice. It all just got real, ladies and gentlemen. I thought we were going to have to wrap up here in a couple minutes.
Muslim
But we're not. We're here all night taking out our aggression on Apostate Aladdin and Saif Talk.
No, I probably have to go soon.
Oh, okay, that'd be cool. That'd be funny if we just cut off anyway and go did something else. Trigger warning, Islam took over all of the Middle East and beyond, one city at a time. No, people converted because of the powerful message of Dawah.
Yes. How dare you?
Disobey says they deserve the same gifts and blessings they shared with Israel on the 7th. No, they were like raping and torturing people. So no, I don't want them to. I don't want them to get that in return.
That's the thing. People always talk about relative morality. What is actually happening in front of your eyes is the bad form of relative morality, which is the prescribing relative morality and thinking, oh, you know what, we are actually against rape and against torture and killing children and abducting people and all of that. However, in this case, it can be justified because these people are, resisting oppression and all of that. They're victims. Therefore, it's not so bad when they rape people and take
hostages and then rape them for months and so on.
Yeah. And here, people don't realize that they are doing precisely that thing that everyone always seems to dislike so much. And in response to that, it should be pointed out that that the actions that Hamas committed and other organizations of Gazans committed are completely inexcusable and unacceptable and need to be punished severely. The response to that cannot be, well, they did it, so therefore we should be able to do it too, because that's just, it should never be acceptable under no circumstance.
Correct. Ayatollah says, I commented on a Muslim cowboy video, just donated to the settlements, laughing my butt off, and he responded, may Allah resurrect you with them. Is there some new zombie lore in the Quran about big Zionist zombies?
No, what that refers to is the Quran says that you will be, on the day of judgment, you will be raised together with those that you are close to or that you were with, basically. So, which means, so he's implying that those people are going to be severely punished in the afterlife, and that you should also be severely punished together with them.
Join the Redeem says, every time retail one of the Free Palestine people that we support Israel, they holler in our faces, 10,000 babies dead. What is the best response to that? So every time you're talking to a Free Palestine person, and you say you support Israel, they scream, 10,000 babies dead. So what's the best response to that, AP?
I feel like if it was a different time, I would have a better response to it. The thing is, I get that all the time, right? I say it's a just war, it's a justified war, justified things are going on, and then I'm told, but is it not enough for you? 30,000 people dead, so many women, so many children, and of course, it's one thing to say we don't even know if the numbers are true or not. It is probably true that there are lots of dead children and lots of dead women among those that are not part of the conflict. But this is just, it's a very, very pathetic, almost sinister attempt by these people to deflect from realities by using and abusing the deaths of civilians on their own side, which are caused by a war that they cheered for when it was started. What exactly do these people expect as a response? They will say, "Oh yeah, okay, so many people died, therefore, yeah, you guys are right." No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. They did an attack. Israel is now responding, and necessarily responding in such a way that a lot of uninvolved people are also dying as part of this war. This is not the first war where civilians are dying or where non-combatants are dying. It happens in every war all the time. This is not the first war where friendly fire is happening. It happens all the time in every single war. In most wars, most of the dead are civilians, not combatants. In this case, Israel can simply not solve this problem in any other way, unless they're going precisely the way they're going right now. They're trying to minimize civilian casualties as much as possible. They're trying to point people toward different safer areas. They're trying to provide some sort of help, but attacking Gaza, such a densely populated place where Hamas deliberately hides among the civilian population and deliberately hides under the civilian population, it is extremely hard to avoid civilian deaths. In fact, if you look at the numbers, it looks like the combatant to non-combatant death ratio is quite reasonable compared to other conflicts and other wars.
And that's according to Hamas's numbers. If you go with Hamas's numbers, military historians say these are really good numbers given the type of warfare. Given the type of warfare, you're engaging in urban warfare with people who are using women and children basically as human shields, and you're still got a basically 2-to-1 ratio of civilians to combatants.
I would also say, you know what? If the situation is so bad, why don't you pressure Hamas to end this war?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So join the redeemed. When someone's, hey, what about these dead babies? What about all these dead babies? Very simple. Why are the babies dead? Why? Because Hamas went over, under, and through the border with Israel, killed as many people as they could find, then ran and hid while taking a bunch of hostages. Is Israel supposed to just sit back and say, okay, keep our hostages? And no, we're not going to go capture the people who slaughtered our people. What nation on the planet would be expected to say, oh, we just had a ton of people killed, and they've got a bunch of our hostages, but you know what? We don't want to actually go after them because then there will be civilian casualties, so we don't want to go after them. If we go after them, there are going to be civilian casualties because they run and hide among civilians. So therefore, we just have to let them slide and let them keep doing it over and over and over again. Like who would be expected to live by that? One nation on the planet is expected to live like that. Israel. And so that's very easy to point out. Why are people in Palestine dying right now? Because of Hamas. Hamas has the ability to stop it right now. It could be over tomorrow. Hamas just has to say, here are all your hostages, and all the jihadis are turning ourselves in. Done. It's over. They don't want to. So if the people who carried out a massive crime and who are holding hostages refuse to actually stop it, I don't know. What is Israel supposed to do? Just give up? Say, oh, okay, keep our hostages, and all you guys who killed and raped a bunch of our people, you're good. We're gonna let you slide.
They should just respond with a strongly worded condemnation. Per Twitter.
Yep. Let's see here. As an ex-Muslim, then we'll jump back into this video. As an ex-Muslim, after watching AP, David Wood, Christian Prince, and Nabi Asli videos, I realized how we Muslims were deceived. Most Muslims do nothing about their religion. Know nothing about their religion since it is allowed. Yep.
You're lying. You were never a true Muslim to begin with.
Liar. Theo says, love you guys. Been watching you two for almost 2 years. God bless. It's not too late for AP to find Christ.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Addison says, hey, can you imagine Apostate Aladdin right there? It's not too late for AP to find Christ. That's when he's supposed to say, no, I hate Christ. I hate him. I hate all religions equally. They're all equally evil and stupid. And if he doesn't say that, then
you would expect Apostate Prophet to say something in response to this, but unfortunately he doesn't, which is which is very, very disheartening and traumatizing to me. And after I watched this live stream, and I saw as Apostate Prophet just sat there and didn't say anything after being told about Jesus Christ, he has lost all my respect. And frankly, I am wondering if this is healthy and not rather dangerous to all ex-Muslims around the world.
It's AP is literally committing genocide against ex-Muslims by not making fun of Christ right here. Addison says, "Hey David, it was good meeting you at Apologeticon." Yes, it was, and they're already setting up number 2 for next year. So yes, Apologeticon is going to be an annual thing. So
Nice.
see you again if you come next year. David, regarding mosques in places of other religious sites, did you know that Shia Mosque in Iran is where the tomb of Isaiah is? No, I did not. But that would fit the pattern, wouldn't it? That would fit the pattern. All right, let's jump back to our good friend Chris here.
I gotta go. You can continue. I gotta go.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. Yep. I gotta go.
Good. No one likes you anyway.
To her, verse 4, I think it is. Let's check it out. Yeah, you have Maliki al-Madin or Maliki al-Madin, whether he is the owner or whether he is the king of the Day of Recompense. So clearly there are variants, and the only way that Muslims even reconcile the different readings is through the hadith that talks about Muhammad authorizing different readings. Oh, how interesting. Muhammad is saying it's okay to have different Qurans. All right then. Well, that solves the problem. Muhammad said you can have different Qurans. It's all okay. We can go home. There's no problem. There's just 10 Qurans. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Oh, wait. Muhammad says there was 7. Yeah, he said there was 7. He didn't say there was 10. So how did you end up with 10? I'll give you a clue. You added them. Your scholars quite literally found more readings and saw how well used they were by their communities and went, okay, let's increase the number from 7 to 10. This is why scholars like Dr. Yasser Qadi don't hold to the view that...
Okay, I gotta go.
I already said go. Your legs broke.
You're supposed to... It's supposed to be a special... You're supposed to do a special goodbye or something. Like
it's not going to be special. You can just disappear.
Fine, okay. See you soon.
I'll be terribly interested in your return.
Okay, thanks. Bye. Stay away from Islam.
Yeah.
The Aluf, or the 7 supposed readings that Muhammad recited in, and the Qira'at readings are the same thing, because they're not the same numerically. This means that Muhammad revealed something in 7 different ways, but we don't have those 7 different ways today. We have 10. And even then, those 10 are only 10 that we accepted. There was 50, if not more, different unauthorized Qira'at readings that simply weren't selected by big brain people. So what happened to these 7 different readings? Because according to the standard Islamic narrative, which is totally reliable and trustworthy, Uthman got these Quranic materials according to Sahih Hadith, and he burned them, those that he did not accept, and he canonized it into a single reading, that of the...
Guys, I want to point out, because Chris was saying that he doesn't think this entire approach is going to last very long. This people acknowledging that there are all these different Qurans out there while still maintaining that they somehow all go back to Muhammad and that there therefore are, you could still defend perfect preservation that way because they all go back to Muhammad. The explanations are pretty ridiculous, right? So, and there's a question of whether the explanations at all go back to Muhammad. So Muhammad supposedly said the Quran is revealed in 7 different ways. The Quran is revealed in these 7 different ways. These are the ahruf, and you have different Muslims who think these mean different things. This refers to different dialects or something like that. Does not work. That explanation does not work because you had people who spoke the exact same dialect quoting different versions of the Quran. But really, it looks like by the time you get to the Hadith, they were aware of all these different variants, and then they wrote Hadith where Muhammad is saying, of course there are different versions of the Quran. That's because it was revealed in all these different ways. So it really looks like this is just a later fabricated story to justify the different versions of the Quran. But even if you take these Hadiths seriously, the absurdity becomes apparent because you have Muslims who start disputing about reciting the Quran. They're reciting different versions. And then it gets brought to Muhammad. And this is, by the way, this is after the conquest of Mecca. So this is the last 2 years of Muhammad's life. His companions come to him and they're disputing about how to recite the Quran accurately. And Muhammad says to one companion, how do you recite it? The guy recites it one way. And he says to a different companion, how do you recite it? And that companion recites it in a different way. And then he says, yes, it was revealed in both these ways. Now think about this. If Muhammad, just think, so this is the last 2 years of Muhammad's life. His companions are shocked that they're reciting the Quran differently. They come to Muhammad, hey, what's going on here, Muhammad? What's going on? We're reciting the Quran differently. And Muhammad says, yeah, it was revealed in these different ways. Now think about this. If Muhammad all along had been revealing the Quran in all these different ways to different people, whether you want to say it's different dialects or whatever, if he had been revealing these Qurans in all these different ways, don't you think someone would have heard about it at some point before the conquest of Mecca? Wouldn't this have been understood? He's having people memorize passages of the Quran. Don't you think someone would have noticed at some point that he's revealing it in 7 different ways? He's going to person 1, hey, here's how you recite it. He goes to person 2, now here's how you recite it. He goes to person 3, now here's how you recite it. He goes to person 4, now here's how you recite it. All the way down to 7 different recitations. No one has any clue about this. And he just announces it. Oh, I've been revealing it in 7 different ways. Really? In other words, this seems like a really, really, really awful and stupid way of explaining different Qurans, when you could just do it the realistic way and say, guys, there are things called textual variants. If you're copying things down, people make mistakes. If you're reciting it, guess what? Human memory is not the greatest way to preserve information, so you're going to make mistakes. You could explain it that way. They don't want to. They don't want any mistakes involved, and therefore they have to make up increasingly absurd explanations for why they have all these thousands and thousands of variants in their Qurans. Is that going to last? No, I don't think it's going to last. They're just trying to hold it up. They're just trying to hold it down. Guys, everything in Dawah right now is trying to keep the boat afloat, keep the boat from sinking until they believe that Islam can take over powerful nations and just subjugate people to where you're not allowed to criticize the Quran anymore. So it's kind of a race. Like, we have to expose this stuff before they can actually silence us about it. Go through a couple of super chats here. JB says, just to show you some support from Belgium. Keep up the amazing work, guys. By the way, AP's magnificent mustache makes fear he's going to besiege Vienna. Yeah, he should grow a big, like, Nietzsche-style mustache. 8 billion people on earth. We all born Muslim according to Muhammad. 2 billion current Muslims, 6 billion left Islam. Islam is the religion people leave the most. Miracle or... Yeah, that's true. No one, according to Islam, no one leaves any religion more than people leave Islam. So it is the most apostate. What's funny is that that Mufti Menk clip we saw, he was saying that of people who actually leave religions, the biggest group of people who are leaving any religion are what he called defectors, were leaving from Islam. But yeah, when you multiply this times what Muhammad said, that everyone starts off as Muslim and then they leave Islam, like no one has ever left anything more than people have left Islam. Do Muslims believe in the Tower of Babel and the scattering of the languages? If so, why do they believe Allah made Arabic so important for his followers, i.e. just one language? As far as Muslims and their view of Arabic, I've pointed this out. Check out my video. What's it called? Yeah, check out my video, Why the Quran was Revealed in Arabic. Check out my video, Why the Quran was Revealed in Arabic. The Muslim obsession with Arabic is very different from what you read in the Quran. In the Quran is revealed in Arabic because Arabs needed a revelation in their language and everyone else already had their revelation. It's sort of Muslims eventually, once they start saying that all other books have been corrupted and the Quran's the only one left, then they start becoming obsessed with Arabic, and everything only works in Arabic and everyone has to learn Arabic and so on. because translation of the Quran isn't allowed in Islam. It's allowed, they don't think that you're actually reading the Quran. Let's have a Ramadan party, feasting and praying. Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun Ramadan because I think I'm just going to be going pretty hard on Ramadan this year. It's still the most amazing. If I just knew this about Islam, that it takes a bunch of people and has them eat what amounts to a Thanksgiving dinner. So guys, I don't know what other holidays people have in the rest of the world, but if you're in America, you have Thanksgiving. Imagine eating a big Thanksgiving dinner, normally stuffed. Now imagine doing that twice per day, 2 Thanksgiving meals per day. You'd be really, really stuffed. Now imagine eating 2 Thanksgiving meals per day for an entire month. That would be a ton of eating. You'd probably be really sick of eating all that. But now imagine eating 2 Thanksgiving meals per day for an entire month and claiming that you're fasting the entire time. That's Islam. It gives you something. It gives you something, some religious duty, and convinces you that you're doing this amazing thing when you're not even doing what you're claiming to be doing. Hamas are breaking fast with lead and shrapnel. I am concerned about what's going to happen this Ramadan. Lots of years during Ramadan, you get this spike in violence because lots of Muslims believe that their good deeds are multiplied if it's done in Ramadan, if it's done during Ramadan. So if you're going to like wage jihad and get that reward, well, if you do it in Ramadan, it's actually multiplied. And so that's why you see these spikes in violence. But yeah, given the, last year's attacks and things that are still going on right now, you could have an escalation. Jeremy here says, wait, I thought Bibles became available 500 years ago, not 12 years ago. Jeremy, we're talking about Dawah here, where the history is completely made up. Whatever you want to say about anything, as long as you're making it up about Christianity and the Bible, you're good to go. And no one in the Dawah community is ever going to hold you accountable for any lies that you tell. Gwyneth here says, lack of Bible teaching, for example, it's being banned from schools is responsible for a decline of Christianity rather than access to Bibles. King James Version translation is about 500 years old. Yeah, this Scythe Talk, he seems like a complete dope. Again, if for people who are tuning in late, Scythe Talk's explanation for people becoming atheists in the UK is that for the entire history of Christianity, Christians in the UK did not have access to Bibles until recently. Then they got Bibles, and then they opened their Bibles and they read it, and then they left Christianity. That's his story. I mean, you'd have to be a complete idiot to think that is the actual story. These people are not reading the Bibles and saying, "Oh, we recognize this is false." They're just concluding there is no God and that religion is dumb and stupid. That's the cause of it. All right, let's jump back into this video a little bit. Back up slightly. Just want to finish this video from Chris here.
Readings, because according to the standard Islamic narrative, which is totally reliable and trustworthy, Uthman got these Quranic materials according to Sahih Hadith, and he burned them, those that he did not accept, and he canonized it into a single reading, that of the Qurayshi dialect. But wait, there are 7 different aruf, but only 1 copy. Where did the other 6 aruf go? Did he...
Very important point. I was pointing out earlier. I'm going to rewind this just because I don't want to interrupt it, but he's making a very important point. I want people to understand it. I was talking about the absurdity of these stories about how we ended up with all these different readings. And Muhammad says, the Quran was revealed in these different ways. Okay, suppose you grant that. Suppose you ignore the problems. Suppose you completely ignore all the problems with this explanation. Namely, that once people start reciting the Quran in different ways, Muhammad says, oh yeah, I've been revealing it in all those different ways. And no one knew about this. That's very, very absurd. Seems much more likely that someone who came along later just made up the story. But suppose you want to grant the story. And you say, Muhammad revealed the Quran in a bunch of different ways. Fine, but what happens then? People are quoting the Quran in different ways. It gets back to Uthman, the caliph, after Muhammad dies, and Uthman standardizes the Quran. What's he do? He gets rid of the variants and just issues one authoritative Quran. Okay, well, if he's issuing one authoritative Quran, then why do you still have the variants later on? Why do you have all the variants later on? He issued an authoritative Quran. He got rid of 6 of the 7. Why do you still have all the variants? That's the point. There's no coherent view here. This is why Yasser Qadhi did not want to talk about this. Yasser Qadhi understood there is no coherent explanation here. You can't make sense of it. Yes, among Muslims, this is exactly what he said in that interview. Among Muslims, we'll see a problem and then we'll give some response and then we'll act like, that's the answer. He says the Western scholars, they don't stop. They start pushing and saying, does this really fit? Does this really make sense? And he was acknowledging, no, it doesn't actually fit. And he said he's working on one. Guess what? It's very simple. Human beings are not perfect and they screw up and they make mistakes. Why can that not be the response? Because then you can't run around claiming miraculous preservation. Very, very strange. All right, let me back this up a little bit with Chris, because this is an important point. And guys, when we say that these responses are not going to last forever, that depends on people, viewers, you actually learning the responses, learning the problems with these explanations and going out and using them. That's how we refute these positions. We just have to be relentless over years, right? So if you go back 15 years, we say, hey, Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl. What do they say? Liar, that's not true. It never happened. You're making that up. You Islamophobes. And then we just keep showing their sources and showing their sources and showing their sources. Then they come up with another explanation. Then we just keep refuting that one and refuting that one and refuting that one until you get to our time. And now their position is, yes, of course we defend child marriage and it's good. So you actually have to force them into dropping all the lies. And that's what we have to do on every one of these issues, because if it comes down to their leaders and their scholars, their leaders and their scholars and their Dawah guys are going to keep lying. We're the only thing that actually corrects them. And that's what we have to do for the people who listen to these guys. We have to keep exposing them. All right, back to Chris here.
Not accept. And he canonized it into a single reading, that of the Qurayshi dialect. But wait, there are 7 different aruf, but only 1 copy. Where did the other 6 aruf go? Did he pick one and then get rid of the others and burn them as part of the Quranic materials he burned? If he had all 7, then where are they today? We don't have them. In other words, according to the Islamic tradition, probably 6 out of 7 different readings of Muhammad have been lost. Whoops. There goes perfect preservation. But the oral tradition has preserved it. We've got it in oral tradition. No, you don't. Oral tradition can't preserve even how many verses there are in the Quran. That's up for debate. Is the Bismillah a verse in the Quran? It depends who you ask. What do the mysterious letters mean? It's just garbage. The oral tradition could not preserve a lot of detail about the Quran. There are quite literally surahs with names that you don't even know what they mean. Again, not a problem for us Christians. We don't think that's too much of an issue. I mean, it'll be very weird, but hey, doesn't affect our salvation. We still have the perfect preserved meaning. Christ is Lord and he came for us to atone for our sins so that we may have eternal life in him. Kind of a problem for you though, given that you think that the Quran is perfectly preserved. Yeah, it's not though. It's really not. The contradictions thing is funny, largely because the Quran itself has no issue with contradictions. We read in Surah An-Nisa, ayah 82. Then do they not reflect upon the Quran? That's a little bit hard if a lot of it is unreadable. But anyway, if they had been from any other than Allah, they would have found within it much contradiction. Now Muslims, they spin this brilliantly. They go, see, the Quran is from God because there's no contradiction in it. Ignore the fact that this is logically dumb because there are many things that don't have contradictions in it. I can write a very long page of random facts and there'll be no contradiction, and it doesn't mean it's from God. It's obviously from me. But anyway,
yeah, guys, some Muslims do use Surah 4, verse 82 as an argument for Islam. So Chris is outlining the problems with that right here. So the Quran claims if a book is from other than Allah, you would find much contradiction in it. That's false. Chris just pointed out you could write a book. So I could write just a math book that contains no contradiction. I could just write 1 + 1 is 2. 2 + 2 is 4. I can make an entire book of that and then claim that, and at the very last thing, David Wood is a prophet because there's no contradictions in here. No Muslim would take that as a good argument. That's what the Quran says about itself. But in addition to that, and Chris is about to point this out here, notice what the Quran says. The Quran doesn't say the Quran is completely lacks any contradiction. It says, if it were from other than Allah, then they would find much contradiction. So apparently it's okay to have some contradiction, just not much. Just not much. You can't have contradictions all over the place, but you can have some. So that's what Chris is pointing out here. So anyway, guys, got to learn these responses.
Anyway, the Quran actually says, if you look closely at the Arabic, much contradiction. Not any, much. In other words, the Quran isn't concerned about there being contradictions. It's concerned if there's quite a few contradictions. So, yeah, that's weird. But hey, the Quran, I don't think as such is that contradictory. I have to say it. I really do. The Quran, I don't think is that contradictory. I think it's just plain wrong. I think it's just full of error and falsehood. There are tons of examples in the Quran of just obvious falsehood that cannot be reconciled with reality. Take into account the entire doctrine that is spread throughout the Quran that says very clearly that we are to affirm the validity of the previous scriptures. Muhammad had wives and companions who were in Trinitarian Ethiopia. Muhammad calls the Trinitarians in Najran believers, mu'min, and he says they were following the will of Allah. Muhammad had a sex slave called Mary the Copt from where? The clue's in the name. She was from Egypt. What did they believe in Egypt? I don't know, the Coptic Orthodox Church? I wonder if they were Nicene Creed believing Christians who were Trinitarians. Oh no. So even the people Muhammad was sleeping with at one point in their lives were Trinitarians, and yet Muhammad thinks it's okay to be like, yeah, those Christians have nothing to stand on if they don't judge by the gospel. Oof, Muhammad, that was not a good thing to say. You should have clearly distinguished between whatever weird sect of Christianity he somewhat thinks is around him as well, which, given that the Islamic history clearly says he was chilling with Trinitarians quite a bit, he would think he would know what their scripture says. You would think he would know that there was cross imagery on Ethiopian churches. There are Ethiopian churches at the time of Muhammad near where supposedly his companions docked at when they went to the kingdom of Aksum that are Byzantine churches that the Byzantine Empire helped to fund. How does this make any sense that Muhammad didn't understand what Trinitarian was, and why did he keep telling them to follow the gospel? The answer is simple. Muhammad didn't know what was written in the Gospels. He thought it conformed to what he was saying. He thought whenever he heard different views, whenever he heard talk of the Trinity, he thought that was just people making it up. He didn't realize that comes from our scripture. So when he...
Yeah, guys, so notice this is all in response to Surah 4, verse 82, saying that if this book were from other than Allah, they would find much contradiction in it. And Chris is pointing out here, wait a minute, the Quran is affirming the scriptures of the Christians and affirming that particular Christian groups are actually following God. And he's talking about what these Christians actually believe, and it does not line up with Islam. So the Quran is affirming scriptures and beliefs that don't line up with Islam. Like, how do Muslims not recognize that as a problem? It's like you got this book and you say, this book is perfect because it doesn't contain much contradiction. And yet the book is filled with saying, hey, those guys have scriptures that are as good as gold, and those guys are on the right path. And it's like Trinitarian Christianity and the Bible that he's talking about. So much so that Muslims can't even be honest about what their book is saying. They can't, because they realize that if they were to acknowledge what the Quran says about the Bible, that Islam basically falls apart. So,
affirm that scripture. Correct. He made a big boo-boo. This is one of the many ways the Quran is in blatant error. And Muslims have to do absolute loop-de-loop-de-loop gymnastics to try and get out of this. But the simple fact is, the Quran affirms the Injil. You want to know how to prove this real simple? Ask a Muslim to show you a single manuscript of the real Injil that came from Allah. Where is it? Because Muhammad says it was around in his time. Muhammad even says that one of the proofs of the Quran, by the way, this is another dumb error. One of the proofs of the Quran is that Muhammad actually says, you can find me in the Injil. You can find me in the Torah that you have with you, which is Surah 7, Ayah 157, Surah 61, Ayah 6. So where is that then? If Muhammad had the original Injil and Torah in his time, in his day, in the Hijaz, why was it not preserved by Muslims who could have used it as proof to convince the entire world of Christians and Jews that they need to repent and turn to Islam?
So this is still on the theme of the Quran containing no contradiction. And if you point out, wait a minute, what do you mean no contradiction? The Quran is affirming scriptures that completely contradict the Quran, and the Quran is affirming beliefs of Christians even though they completely contradict Islam, this is a massive problem for you. This is enough to like destroy your religion if people understand what the Quran says about Christians and about their scriptures. The response is, the Quran is only affirming some original copy of the gospel. And that's something that might work with people who have absolutely no clue what the Quran says, i.e. tons and tons of Muslims. So if you go to your Muslim friend and say, hey, there's supposedly no contradiction in your book, but your book affirms my book and my book contradicts your book, so how's this not an issue? He's going to run to one of his Dawah guys and say, hey, my Christian friend says that the gospel is affirmed by the Quran. So how's this work? What's going on here? The Dawah guy is going to lie and say, the Quran is only talking about some original gospel that was later corrupted. But that's not what the Quran says at all. The Quran gives not even the slightest hint that the gospel was ever corrupted. In fact, you could check out my video, what the Quran really says about the gospel. I go through every single verse in the Quran that even mentions the gospel. I go through every last one. There's not a single slight criticism of the book that we have. So what are Muslims going to say? It's just referring to an original one, not to a later one. But as Chris pointed out, you go to Surah 7, verse 157, you go to 61:6. These are affirming the scriptures that were present during the time of Muhammad and saying that Christians still have the gospel during the time of Muhammad. What does this mean? It means that Christians had the gospel in the 1st century. They passed it on reliably to the 2nd century. They had it reliably in the 3rd century, the 4th century, the 5th century, the 6th century, all the way down to the 7th century and all the way down into Arabia. They had the authentic gospel. And then we say, okay, well, we know the gospel that we had in the 7th century. We know that. We have copies from before that time and after that time. We know what the gospel said in the 7th century. And then Muslims actually want to say, no, it's talking about some other gospel that we have no record of. Wait, so Christians had a gospel from in the 1st century, the 2nd century, the 3rd century, the 4th century, the 5th century, the 6th century, all the way into the 7th century that had spread so far that it was all the way down in Arabia. And we don't have one single piece of evidence that this other gospel ever existed at all. Guys, do you notice how they come up with their stories that are supposed to hold their lie together? And it's all just complete, insane, idiotic nonsense that doesn't fit reality at all. And they have to make things up about the history of the Quran. They have to make things up about the history of the Bible. They constantly have to make things up because reality doesn't fit with what their book says. This is what Chris is talking about. It's going to fall apart. It has to fall apart. But once more, it comes down to us. It's not going to fall apart if you leave everything in the hands of the Dawah guys. You have to be consistently, relentlessly exposing them. That's how you get the job done.
It doesn't exist. In fact, Muslims actually tried to forge these. They tried to make these up centuries later because they realized how embarrassing it was that in the Quran, there is a proof of its validity. The proofhood of Muhammad's prophethood is that the Injil and the Torah mention him, but they can't show that. Christians kept saying, where is it? Where is it? Oh, your Bible's been corrupted. But it was with Muhammad, so what the hell happened to it? Christians didn't invade the Hijaz. What happened? Oh, it just went somewhere. Yeah, Islam is done. One last point. He brought up the whole
Islam is in trouble. I mean, guys, if you went from basically a 0% apostasy rate to 24% in like 15 years, and all they can do right now, is try to lie harder. We're going to lie harder. We're going to lie more and lie harder and lie faster and have more people lie. That's their solution. Islam's done.
Textual criticism exploded apparently when people could read the Bible, which according to him was like 20 years ago. No, textual criticism exploded due to partly the Enlightenment. People started to have ideas that you could critically evaluate things to get closer to the truth, and that religious dogma or idealism should be challenged, not just to destroy it, but to harden it, to make it better, more closer to what we think is. Because again, the empirical method is valuable and should be used. Islam, on the other hand, they weren't too big on this. Really. Yeah, really. You know that Fidel Suleiman book I told you could go get? You used to be able to get it directly on Quran.com as part of their translations in English. I love that, but they've got rid of it now. Probably because they know people like me are using it. Islam doesn't like criticism. It can't really sustain it. Christianity embraced it and said, bring it on, let's see what happens. Islam was like, whoa, yeah, we don't like this. We really don't like this. Which is why the avalanche of apostasy is ongoing and will be ongoing and getting worse every day until Islam is now completely evaporated. You cannot keep believing in a religion that has evidently made up stuff to protect its own doctrines. The Quran is not perfectly preserved. It never has been. Even the early Muslims didn't believe it was. But yeah, Muslims today will tell you that yes, perfectly preserved, no issues whatsoever. They'll brag about it being free of contradictions, but it contains really dumb things. Like nonsense statements, historical claims that are evidently false by all evidence. And so for that reason, ladies and gentlemen, there's a better way in Jesus Christ. We have our Lord and our Savior who died for us so that we could have eternal life. We don't believe in silly doctrines like books that come down from the sky because they've been preserved eternally in tablet form. And I don't mean like an Android tablet, I mean like an actual tablet, presumably a very big tablet. I don't know, maybe there's multiple of them. Islam hates the disbelievers. Islam hates me. God, on the other hand, the true God, loves you and wants you, and even loves this guy. Right? Got to give him a break at some point. He is loved and God calls him to the true religion and not to a religion that came 600 years later and made very strange and peculiar things based off what one guy had seen in the cave when he thought he was being attacked by something demonic. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a great day. God bless you all. Take care.
Wow, this Chris guy's getting pretty good at these videos, isn't he? Liking Chris. Everyone be sure to... again, I have a link to the video that we just went through on Chris's channel. Be sure to share that and check out his other videos and be sure to subscribe. All right, let's go ahead and check out some super chats. Have to read these all myself because AP is a traitor. What else do we expect from an atheist? Let's see. Flypaint says, saw thousands of Muslims protesting the new Holocaust Museum in Amsterdam today. Are American churches and temples next? That's pretty cold. If people are protesting, I'm just going to search for this real quick. People are protesting at a Holocaust museum. Where? Amsterdam. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Protests erupt at Holocaust Museum opening in Amsterdam. Huh. Wow. Wow. That's cold, guys. That's cold. I think a lot of the protesters are going to be turning a lot of people off. People who might be sympathetic if you just keep annoying. They seem to think the more we annoy and harass people, the more they're going to agree with us. Well, I mean, you can annoy and harass people into shutting their mouths, but that's not going to win them over to your side. And so I think they're actually going to end up messing up and driving more people away from their view. Varun says, the Quran confuses Miriam, sister of Aaron, with Maryam, mother of Jesus. Yes, it is the odd position of the Quran that there can be only one Mary. There can be only one. So if you find two people, because you have Miriam, the sister of Aaron and Moses, and you have Mary, the mother of Jesus. In Arabic, they're both the same name. And the author of the Quran thinks they're the exact same person, even though they're 12 to 14 centuries apart. The next Zakir Naik says, hey, David and AP, please rethink your actions. Please think of all the Muslim feelings you have hurt and offended by criticizing and mocking Islam. Thank you. And so we have Apostate Aladdin winning more support from the next Zakir Naik. Because Jesus, Galatians 1, that's a weird way to put the reference. Galatians 1-7:9. I think you're talking about chapter 1, verses 7-9, which would identify Muhammad as an obvious false prophet. And yes, Ivan, by the way, David, your videos made me read the Bible, new and old. God bless you, NAP. My videos do have that effect on people. Zippy says, I'm back, baby. It's been too long. Missed everyone here. Inbreeding is very common in the Middle East. Maybe that's why the Dawah guys make no sense. Yeah, I don't know the connection to actual inbreeding, but there is something going on with how absolutely silly the arguments are and what actually qualifies as a response among the Dawah guys. It's insane. The biggest export of Muslim countries is Muslims. Yeah, and jihad. They retracted the carbon dating study of the shroud, same journal that released it. They tested a repaired corner. The Pints of Aquinas episode is super thorough on that and more. Now, I remember that because that's back when I was studying. So this was, and I'm saying that because I'm not sure of that. I would have to watch it and see what's going on because, so what happened, ladies and gentlemen, was they did a carbon dating test on a piece of the shroud back in the day, and it gave a date in the Middle Ages. And so for people who believed it was authentic, this was odd. They actually thought, hey, it's going to date to, the first century or something like that. But then there was a journal article. I remember reading it you're talking like 20 years ago now, Thermochemica Acta. So it's a chemistry journal. And he replied that the corner that they used for the carbon dating was actually something that had been sewn in because of damage to it. So it was a more recent piece. And he was suggesting you need something from in the middle of the Quran. Now, you don't want to go chopping it up, but he's saying you can get individual threads and stuff like this and can take some of the loose threads and actually compile them and do it. So I remember that, but I also remember there was some response to that came later on, and that was saying, no, this guy's actually wrong, saying that this fixes the carbon dating problem. But once more, I'm not completely up to date. I'd have to see what was shared on Pints with Aquinas, and I'd have to see if anything was left out. Christian says, before I join AP's cult, I need confirmation that the Screaming Goat will also be a member, and all meetings will begin and end with his battle cry. Yes, AP's Cult of the Screaming Goat. That's kind of a cool name for a cult. Screaming Goat Cult. So, you have confirmation. Daniel, hi, kick a Pikachu. Stop touching my leather straps. Oops. Daniel, sorry, I accidentally almost shut down the live stream by clicking on the wrong thing. Let's see. Y'all see Abdullah Samir's take on Apostate Aladdin versus AP yet? No, but I saw that that Abdullah Samir was responding to the issue, and just based on what people said about it, sounds like he's saying that Apostate Aladdin should not be blasting away at AP, and so I'm guessing I would agree. But Abdullah Samir usually has pretty balanced takes. He's not going on any weird takes usually. Hummus is Tremor Wrist T-shirts. My name, Tamil. What? Hummus is Tremor Wrist T-shirts. My name, Tamil. I don't know what that means. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. What is that? It's like an hour left of my weekend. Sorgu says, Obi Wood and Apostate Prophet, did y'all bombs kill people? No. Did you know? Oh, I remember what this is. Did you know bombs kill people? Yeah, that was, for anyone who doesn't know what that means, that was part of our live stream yesterday when we were making fun of Cenk Uygur for thinking it was informing people. Hey, there's something you need to know. Bombs kill people. Shocker. Question for AP. Did Solomon's Temple actually exist? AP is no longer here because he's a traitor, but I'm assuming he would say that Solomon's Temple did actually exist. Because even if you had no idea what's in the Bible, so you still have information about the Babylonian Empire and stuff like that, and conquering the land of Judah and deporting the population and so on. So, yeah, there was a temple there. There was a temple there. John Choi, happy Ramadan. To celebrate, I had a bacon cheeseburger this morning. I'm going to be eating a ton of stuff for Ramadan. And even though I'm going to be eating a ton of stuff for Ramadan, I will not be eating anywhere near how much Muslims are eating while they're fasting. Off topic, but do you guys believe Allah was Muhammad's sock puppet or a god worshipped by the Arabs before Muhammad? Allah was a god worshipped by the Arabs before Muhammad, but Muhammad turned him into a sock puppet. So for instance, if you take the Muslim sources at all reliably, Muhammad's father was named Abdullah. That means slave of Allah. So this was not Muhammad didn't invent the name Allah for his God. And what seems was there were people who regarded Allah as like the main deity. So even the polytheists, they can have a hierarchy, and they think apparently there were some who thought that Allah is like the main deity. Muhammad comes and says, no, Allah is the only one. And then that one deity becomes his sock puppet for anything he wants. Best response, their whole culture is to love dying for Allah. They say it's the best thing for them as it gets them into the best heaven. So what's the problem? Do they respect al-Islam? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think this is a response to the earlier question. What about all the people being killed? Well, what are you talking about? If they say they love death and they love dying for Allah and going to paradise, then what would be the problem there? To put it short, when they run around saying we love death more than they love life, with a very few of them, I believe it, like suicide bombers and things. But most of them, when they run and hide from a counterattack, I don't believe them. They want to live. What's up, my dude? The Apostate Prophet praying for you. He's not here. You could still pray for him, though. What you two think of Sharif Gaber's content? Not sure whether I've seen it. I'm horrible with names until I become very, very familiar with the name. So I wouldn't know until I actually saw it, and then I would know if I'm familiar with it or not. Rick here says, Allah snack bar is fine with Muslims lying. Do they not think he is lying to them from an ex-atheist? That's a problem we've pointed out multiple times in the past. If Allah is fine with lying in various situations, and given the main interpretation of what happened at the crucifixion, the dominant Muslim position is that Allah tricked people, including Jesus' followers, into thinking that he died on the cross. And so Allah will trick even people who are trying to follow his prophets. Allah will trick them. And then, of course, even in Islam, in Surah 8, Allah tricks Muslims into going out and fighting the Meccans. He tricks them by giving Muhammad a dream in which Muhammad dreams that the Meccans don't have enough people to fight the battle. And so the Muslims are going to have an easy fight. So Muhammad gets a dream. He wakes up. Hey, guys, Allah gave me a dream. They're showing up with very few defenders. We can take these guys. They actually go out to fight, and they're totally outnumbered. And then so Allah has to explain, hey, if I had told you that you're totally outnumbered, you wouldn't have gone out and fought. So I had to trick you. Surah 8, verse 43. I had to trick you. But notice, that is a God who will deceive even the people who are following his prophets, and he will use his prophet to deceive these people to get what he wants. And so the question is, once that's the kind of God you're dealing with, how do you believe anything? How do you know he's not just tricking you about Muhammad being a prophet? Problems. I think AP was trying to hint that he wanted you to chuck him in bed and read him a story before he fell asleep. Yeah, he is a kind of a baby. David, are you secretly a wingaling? Loved Apologeticon. Lots of AP fans were there too. Wingaling, no. For those of you who don't know, wingalings are followers of Mike Winger. Mike Winger, the king of all nerds. No comment there. Hey, Eli Shamoon. Love you, brother. Yes, good seeing you and hanging out with you, Eli. It may seem like slow-going, refuting Dawah lies, but we're seeing history unfold. Yeah, guys, that's something to keep in mind. It just when you just answer an objection and you respond to it and you put the sources on the screen that refute what they're saying, and they deny it anyway. and you do it over again, and you do it over again, and you do it over again, and you do it for a year, and then you do it for another year and another year. It seems like you're just making absolutely no difference at all. And it seems like you're wasting your time. And then all of a sudden, an entire argument collapses after years of this. I think was it yesterday? I pointed out somewhere recently that in my mind, it's like you have a piece of ice. Suppose you have a piece of ice at 10 degrees. You got a piece of ice at 10 degrees, melts when it gets 32 degrees. So you got a piece of ice that's at 10 degrees. Suppose if you heat it up, and you heat up the temperature in the room to 11 degrees, ice doesn't change. You heat it to 12 degrees. You slowly increase the temperature, and it's going up 1 degree. Let's suppose the temperature is going up 1 degree per hour. Hour later, ice hasn't changed. Another hour, ice hasn't changed. Another hour, ice hasn't changed. All of a sudden, you get up to your 29 degrees. Still, the ice hasn't changed. 30 degrees, ice hasn't changed. All of a sudden, you hit 32 degrees, and then it melts very, very rapidly. That's what it kind of feels like. You keep coming at it, keep coming at it, keep coming at it. And all of a sudden, everything is in place, and it all just, the lie melts. The lie melts before your eyes. But note, it's because of all the work you put into it beforehand. It's because of all the change that took place beforehand that it suddenly just collapses. So yes, guys, got to be completely relentless. Dizzle, don't you think your opponents will try to attack the gathering of apologists? Is a yearly event really a good idea? Well, that's what security's for, but anyone who wants to kill me can come do it. It's not like I haven't given them tons and tons and tons of opportunities. It's just always in my mind, hey, I'll go make a couple of really awesome videos, and if they kill me afterwards, oh, that's cool. I'll probably help spread the message and allow a bunch of other people to jump in there and say, hey, you see what Islam does? So, killing the Dizzle, not a problem. Muhammad is mentioned in the Bible, Revelation 19:20, 20:10. So there. Yes, that is true. That is correct. And you guys can look up those references to see what he's going at here. CO says, thanks. A CO? As in a correctional officer? Thank you for your work, David, and Heathen AP. Yes, Heathen AP does some good work. Drew Trevor, the light of Muhammad adorned the throne of Allah. And Tabarani, the light of Muhammad on Allah's throne. Yeah, Muhammad is definitely deified in Islam, but Allah has no partners, they say so. All right, guys, so I think we'll be back a couple times this week. We definitely want to kick something off. We've got to do something for Ramadan. Lots of eating for Ramadan to show solidarity. Keep in mind, we have the everyone wear a hijab day to show solidarity with Muslim women. That's a thing. That's a thing that happens every year, and people show their solidarity with Muslim women by wearing the hijab. What else do we have to do? We have to eat piles and piles and piles of food to show our solidarity with Muslims who are fasting. All right, again, everyone check out Chris's channel. As you can see, he's putting out some really, really good, carefully crafted content. He's responding to the Dawah guys. He's doing exactly one of the things that's needed. Lots of people need to be doing the same thing. Everyone needs to be examining the claims, responding to those claims, sharing that information with people who need it. That's how these things collapse. That's how the Dawah lies collapse. And I don't know if you've noticed, these Dawah guys and their fans, they're pretty relentless in spreading complete nonsense. We have to be just as relentless in exposing the lies, and just have to keep doing that. And we'll see more of their arguments collapsing. And that's interesting because they don't have a lot of arguments left. The next ones that are going to have to fall are going to be much more difficult for them to drop. So you had like the argument from perfect preservation. They'll argue that based on a verse of the Quran, but it's basically a modern argument that was made up, right? Hey, there's only one Quran, not one letter's difference anywhere. That's something that someone made up. So it's something that could be dropped. It was at great cost because they used that for years as one of their top arguments. And then it turned out to be a complete lie. So it does hurt, but at the same time, you can just say, okay, we lied about that a bunch. The scientific miracles argument. Yeah, the Quran is supposedly accurate, but as far as taking all these verses and saying they've got these deep scientific truths, that was stuff that they made up. That was a bunch of stuff that was made up in the 1970s and 1980s. So it was made up so they can abandon it. They can say, well, actually, we were twisting some of these scriptures to get them to fit with science. So in other words, those arguments are kind of expendable. They propped up a lot of people's faith, and so it's going to hurt a lot of Muslims' faith to find out that these arguments were completely made up and bogus and based on lies. But these arguments are expendable. Some of the remaining ones that need to fall, Muhammad in the Bible, the Quran is this literary masterpiece. Some of these other arguments are going to be more difficult for them to let go because it's actually claims from the Quran. It's the Quran. It's not later Muslims saying Muhammad's in the Bible. It's the Quran itself saying Muhammad is in the Bible. So these arguments, once they collapse, are going to hurt way, way, way more. But we got to make it happen. We got to make it happen in our lifetimes. Because what do they have left? They've got a couple of arguments left. And if we make those collapse, man, they're going to have some trouble. They're going to have some trouble. 2 more super chats. I'm a religious Jew from Tel Aviv with over 74,000 books, with 14 years of huge study of the deepest secrets in Judaism. How can I contact you? Well, you just did, but you can, if you go to answeringislam.net, answeringislam.net, that's a site we all used to write for. You can go to individual authors. I'm going to be listed there. You can get my email and you can contact me there. And Drew says, excuse me for being a sorry wingling, but I could only make half of one day at the apologetics conference. Well, there's next year. There's next year, Drew. And I know if Mike Winger had been there, then more winglings would have shown up. It would have been a complete disaster, because if the winglings showed up, like every question in the Q&A would have been something about like, oh, what about episode 37 of the original Star Trek series? How does what Captain Kirk did there tie into 1 Corinthians? Can you explain, Mike Winger? And then you'd have got this big nerd answer, and would have been the worst conference of all time. So yeah, we can all be thankful that Mike Winger was not there. All right, everyone. I will catch you all later. Not sure what day. Working on some videos right now. Should be some cool stuff coming out here very soon. And just remember, when you're in trouble, you call DW, not AP. Catch you later.